All right, here we go. We have Chuck D, one of the most prolific voices in music.
Cut out. Vlad, we go back before 8-tracks, Cadillacs, and Similacs when we were all in the little small cubicles.
Yeah, man. The lead vocalist of Public Enemy, who I consider to be the greatest socially conscious rapper of all time.
I don't know about that, but I will tell you,
I'll give you that.
That there's a lot of people that's out there that's nervous when they come to Vlad's TV network. And in our communications throughout the years, you'll hit me up and I said, Vlad, I'm not talking to you, man.
Well, yeah, our last interview was about 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
And over those 10 years.
And over those 10 years, what?
We've been talking the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? It's good to see people out there talking, filling space. I knew it was that time to talk to you. You know why?
Why is that?
John Salley.
It's my man.
When you and John Salley get together, it's that chemistry. And John Salley, he's been like the guru of basketball and sports for the longest period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Salley also comes from the school of the leadership of Isaiah.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I run into Salley back in the day, Pistons, PE, kindred spirits, I wear this University of Georgia shirt. And I'm the type of dude that seriously, like if you saw a shirt one day, you will see it again somewhere. Maybe not back to back, but if I'm on tour, you might see it back to back. And Salley would be like, man, Chuck, get that shirt off your chest. And he'd go into this whole spiel on how the University of Georgia was founded. It's up in Athens, plantation owners, a confederacy and all that. And, he went to Tech. So I said, all right, Salley. And I liked it because of Dominique Wilkins and the colors and all that. I didn't, but you can't look up everything. And then when you looked it up and say, all right, I'll make sure I don't wear it around you, Salley. But I like the shirt, man. But it coincidentally, my dad in his later stages, retired as the housing supervisor at Georgia Tech. So go figure. So yeah,
small world.
Seeing John Salley as a cultural, figurehead from sports, seeing that thing, I said, all right, let me go do one day with Vlad. This is before all this stuff happened.
Yeah.
Because I would reach out to Salley and I'll reach out to you and say, y'all got a good thing going.
Yeah, you said that we have the best sports show.
You do.
On
you
the
got
internet.
the best, on the internet and also visually, and it's good. You ask him good questions, and he's well-rounded delivering answers, and he's the nerd clown as well as the jock. He's a lot of different things. I called John Salley. He was the Forrest Gump of The Last Dance, because he was in every. He was in every sequence, man.
Yeah,
it's like
Detroit
dude,
with the Bulls.
No, even before that, Georgia Tech in the college years, and it's like, yo, man, it's like, dude, man, you Forrest Gump of The Last Dance.
And I also just did Craig Hodges,
right?
And I guess you contributed or did a quote for his book or something like that.
Yeah. And Craig is also one of those guys. So those guys that came along that understood that what they was in was bigger than what it was, and therefore they had a knowledge, accountability, and responsibility beyond, whatever they was throwing at the court at these guys.
Oh yeah, no, his story, if he were doing what he did today with social media being what it is, without a couple of, he only had a couple of news outlets during his day that pretty much buried his story about how he got blacklisted from the NBA because of the letter he gave to George H.W. Bush.
Right.
If that was on today, he would be an icon.
Well, you always need old heads to bring up what happened to his actuality. You can't rely on the media to bring you flashbacks. Right. Although ESPN was peeling a lot of stuff from their archives during the pandemic.
Right.
But I would tell you this much is that, you have to always keep things in currency. Like Craig Hodges, yes, he did wear dashiki to the White House with George Bush. And, yes, Craig Hodges did win the 3-point championship like a couple years in a row before y'all thought, the 3-point line and the step back tray was something. Craig Hodges did do that, and he got some rings too alongside MJ. So I mean,
he got 4 rings. He got 2 more rings with the Lakers.
With the Lakers,
yeah, exactly.
So, You know, as basketball or sports and also music and entertainment, we always thought it was you know, important to propel each other. Although in entertainment, it was just the wild, wild west and all go for broke and lack of management, lack of administration. And you know, as basketball rose up, you know, hip hop splintered in a bunch of different areas. You know, one thing that would get me, you would see somebody who was totally unaccountable in music because they're doing their particular thing. Yeah, this is person, they're not going to show up here. They're going to maybe whatever would happen. But this same person would do a movie and be on the movie set at 7 a.m. and never bring his posse to the movie. That was you know, everybody would conform to the film industry, but kind of like stepchild and stepladder hip hop, like this is like nothing. And I always saw that you know, being a lifer in this thing to bring our respectability as a genre, an unofficial union, you know, to that we were fantastic too, just like the NBA. They called themselves fantastic. We were fantastic. You know, we're the flash and the dash. We're the entertainer.
Yeah.
You know, and the athletes were the athletes. And then in the 90s, they all kind of you know, Iverson was the key figure in that.
Right. I think he was the one that brought hip hop to the NBA. Before him, everyone was pretty much straight-laced. He came in with the cornrows and the baggy clothes.
David Stern fought against that, man.
Yeah.
Very clearly, I remember David Stern fighting against that even when it came down to hip-hop songs in the arenas. I made Shut 'Em Down specifically for a team like the Knicks ready to play defense. I mean, I made that record for a lot of different records, but I said, we'll deliver parts so if you're in an arena, you could go, shut 'em down, shut 'em down, boom, 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 boom. And it would stop just like that, just so it would fit in the flow of the game. And the NBA was like, you know, that's that hip hop shit, man. You're trying to stay far away from that. And the minute that they couldn't stop it, I think was the 98 All-Star game in the Garden. That's when hip hop was fully like embraced. Stern couldn't do any more about it. He's just like, listen, I can't, you know. I used to always ask the question and wonder, I'm like, what happens when all these players, and I'm asking this question around the turn of the 90s. Salley would tell you, because you didn't see too many of this go on before that. Tattoos. I said, what's going to happen when cats are putting tattoos on their bodies with their own brands, and suppose they want to advertise on their own? What are they going to tell them to cover the tattoos?
I mean, they're doing that now. Remember J.R. Smith put a Supreme tattoo on his leg, and they made him cover it up.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's called the bad haircut, man. After a while, if it's a bad haircut, you're not going to stop the bad haircut.
You have a new song out that you just dropped, State of the Union.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
State of the Union, shut the fuck up.
Produced by DJ Premier.
Yeah.
Damn, y'all sound good together, by the way.
Tour buddy. And we were on the tour last year at Gods of Rap, traveling throughout all of Europe. And we knew we were kin spirits, but even found out we were more kin spirits around 12 midnight. I might have ate something in the lobby past my eating time. You know, Premier tells me, yeah, take one of these. And he introduced me to Tums. I didn't know what the Tums are. I mean, you know, Tums, Rolaids, but I never knew what it was. He said, oh yeah, you take one of these and make it better if you eat late and can't sleep. You got to get up early. And so every time I have a signal to Primo, I go knocking on his door at like 1 a.m. and his room looks like mine, lit up with computers. He's cutting beats, a radio show. In my room, I'm writing lyrics. I got radio shows and inner networks, doing artwork. And we're both doing the same thing at 1:53 in our respective rooms, 1:53 a.m. And that's when I knew and he knew that we were lifers, man, 24-hour-a-day guys. And no flash or fanfare, just about the work, man. And I knew that about him. He knew that about me, but really knowing that about each other, you know, was a kinship that got really stronger because we were the same dude in ways, you know. And coincidentally, today, earlier this week, Premier's mother passed away.
Oh, I heard about that,
And her wake is today on Juneteenth. And his spirit about it is just somewhere else. It's high because he feels that as, and I don't want to speak for him, but his mother has joined his father who were the lights of his life, and it was something. And the way he looks at it is like, it's all in the right spirit. Yeah. So, it's a beautiful, beautiful dude.
Well, you have a new album also, Loud Is Not Enough.
Yes, Loud Is Not Enough. Enemy Radio is like it's the sound system component of Public Enemy. There's no new members. It's members within. Jahi was enlisted like 15 years ago. I mean, he's an educator in the Bay Area. He's from Cleveland. Met him in 1999. Recruited him in the whole Open Up Public Enemy shows. Stellar MC. He also comes from the training grounds, really a harder training ground, KRS-One. So he's worked with Chris. He's also worked with us. And so he's always been on the peripheral and has already had a 20-year career of his own. So Jahi is he's an amazing dude. And there's 4 guys in the Public Enemy thing, which is like 30 people. A lot of times people say, oh, there's Chuck, there's Flav. I remember Terminator X and they Griff, and then they stop.
That's it.
They stop at 4 or 5. I'm like, you ain't seen this dude. Like James Brown has been there since 1987. The same dude who looks the same. And I'm like, people are like, oh, I don't know him. So we don't leave it up for anybody else to define who we are. But you also have to have an understanding. This is what people, if they're going to cut it off at 4 or 5, then that's what they do. That doesn't make us cut it. I got to deal with 30 people. So Enemy Radio is the components, DJ Lord, who replaced DJ Terminator X in 99. So Lord has been with Public Enemy 21 years, and so Lord, Kari Wynn, the guitarist, has been there since 2002. Griff recruited him into the group. These guys have been around 18, 20 years. So we're starting to have conversations that sound like Leonard Skinner and, well, what's the with Van Halen is Hager and David. Yeah. You go through these intervals of all these different parts and players. And
Queen has a new lead singer.
Yeah, we're in that realm. Or I look at this like sometimes, like DJ Lord is one of the most vicious turntablists of all time. He's the millennial side of PE since 99, and he's been here 21 years. And he is a turntablist of high regard. I look at him as quarterbacks. It's like Terminator is the Joe Montana. And Lord is like the Michael Vick or whoever
Well, speaking of Terminator X, as I was going through, my research, I found that, and you can tell me whether this is true or not, that in 1998, Terminator X retired from Public Enemy to focus full time on raising African black ostriches on his farm.
Yes, I don't want to speak for Norm, but yes, he tried that for a couple of years, and it wasn't ostriches; it was emus.
Emus, okay, sorry.
So emus in North Carolina.
In North Carolina,
and
right.
and I kind of like begged Terminator. I said, "Yo, dude, why retire now?" He's like,
Public Enemy's cool, but it's really about these emus right now.
But no, listen, you go around the world, endless tours. You're doing your thing, and then it's like all of a sudden, other things start to, it was burnout. And he was just like, you know what, let me do my thing. And he says somebody had told him that emus were an industry, the eggs, the meat. And so he did for a while have his emu ostrich farm in North Carolina. But he also said a couple years later, they were wiped away with Hurricane Andrew.
Oh, okay.
That hurricane destroyed everything in its path. So that was kind of like one of those things. But Terminator started having the hip hop bug back in 2014, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and trying to figure out ways to work with him. It's like having the 2 quarterbacks. It's the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers type of thing where, and I worked with Terminator on Rap Station on my And You Don't Stop radio show. He's done the mix for a decade. So I look forward to doing some things later on this year, or whenever he wants me to do something, me and him one-on-one. That'll be a great time. But it's a big, large family. Yeah. I dig them all, but it's a family, bro. It's a family.
Well, on the album, on Loud Is Not Enough, my favorite song on there is STD. slavery transmitted disease.
Right.
And I was trying to remember where I heard that before. And when I did an interview with Jalen Rose, he said that in his interview. So we actually titled it that. He said the N-word is an STD,
slavery transmitted disease.
I'm assuming that other people have said that before. I don't think he made that up.
I don't think I've heard that before.
That's one of my idols. Chuck D is like, listening to his music back in the day is like just so dope. And still to this day, still selling out shows across the world.
Yeah.
I noticed when I responded, I had some people hitting me back trying to question our motives. I'm like, So first off, I can say and not say what I want. That's my opinion. That's one. Two, I understand the power in words and how your tongue is a sword. And he used the term that I loved, that in vocabulary, it represents an STD, slavery transmitted disease. Because now we just want to hold on to the word so much and take so much pride in, yeah, I used it. Can't nobody tell me I can't use it. And that's fine. But if you've ever been to a concert, and a lot of these artists is going platinum, double platinum, and triple platinum, there are a lot of different people buying their music.
Singing along.
And they're singing along.
I had to write the song about it. So
really?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe somebody else said it before.
Maybe subconsciously you
yeah, maybe I picked it up and maybe somebody could get me for plagiarism on what they said in the conversation. I wrote the song about it, but I always consider it that. Although, in this time of the last 4 years, I probably said if I did use the word liberally, it's probably a word that I would use for so many white people that's out there acting the goddamn fool. It's that they're designating themselves to be called that as opposed to calling, black folk that. So I just, move it to the side and you can't get rid of words, Vlad. But, you should choose when and why and how to say them because it's a word. We're not going to talk about the removal of the word, but there's a right place and a right time. It's what you call pool room conversation. You don't use pool room conversation in the middle of places where it's not appropriate. So I come from a time where things were appropriate in its circles and things outside its circles is considered inappropriate. We're grown folks, man, especially after 18 years old. Grown folks should do whatever they feel they have to do. Like, I'm not the preacher, I'm not a priest going by like, the moral compass. But I do know that, if you're going to live and coexist and live with people got to understand that, they're not living alone and you're in another person's space. And I don't know if it took this international referendum and pandemic to tell people, now you guys got to pay attention to social distancing. Some people wanted social distancing for a long damn time. Mm-hmm. So we're in a different place and OGs have a responsibility to be in their lane. And I feel that as an OG, be ready to counsel, be ready to advise. Don't always think that you gotta lead. I think we're in a country and a nation and a hemisphere that does not encourage younger adults to take leadership. MTV and Viacom, I blame them for years for extending teenage years to 35.
Okay, I can see where you're going with this.
Vlad, we ain't getting to how old you are, but if a person's 21
I'm 46.
You're 46.
Yeah,
all right.
It's out there.
You got people, when they turn 21, they think there's no way in hell they're going to buy a house.
Yeah.
Until they're 46. That's half-ass backwards. That's a disrespect to young adults. When they turn 18, they finish high school, which used to give them trades to go into a working world and to be able to go to a bank and get a loan and buy a house if they aspired. And even if they had, all right, if it's one parent, okay, it's harder. Two parents, they could group up and get the house for $46,000. My parents grouped up, teamed up to get the house that's in my family for 51 years back in '69 for $24,000. That house is now worth, because of inflation, $250,000, $300,000 or whatever the hell. How the hell is a young person going to say, I want to get my own home? be in an apartment for 20, 30 years, and then you're 50. It's like, so this system has failed young people into thinking that young people are youth instead of young people are adults and leaders. Old people should get the fuck up out of the way naturally so they could, okay, you know what? I'm in my ease back years. Come to me, get some advice. I'll give you some counsel, but I ain't gonna be 30. I ain't gonna live in your body. So I'm here if you need me. But that got twisted up in the last 40 years. In the Black community, some of the things that destroyed the generational tier respect was the drug game in the 80s. Before that, you had a tier game where younger aspired to older. You got the rites of passage. You had to come up through somebody above. But the destruction during the 70s, the infiltration, and especially in the Northeast or spread around the country, the money, the guns, the drama, the game, and crack coming out of cocaine, going into all kinds of wildness in the 80s, destroyed the tier respect, which has never, ever returned. See, a lot of times when people come to you and I watch the shows, I say, you know what? They didn't have to do this interview, but they're trying to build their brand. But you're in control of, you're owner to what you think. You're a slave to what you say. And when you tell, somebody that, it says, look, you're going to talk to a network that will benefit with your art. And you will benefit from them enhancing whatever you're bringing to the table.
Right.
You're having a respectful conversation. But we're in a time where people, I got to do it because, Vlad got, 8 million viewers and, this could be good for my brand and I could get my money up. I'm like, right there, you lose.
Yeah. I mean, and it's something that you have to keep doing. Like you do the first, you do a VladTV interview, you have to follow it up with something of substance, whether it's an album or a movie or your comedy or whatever it is.
I'm talking to you as, like I said, with Salley Talks, and we've been talking for years. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to have a conversation. It's a teachable moment, critical moment. We've been seeing a lot of different things across the last 10 years. And you'll ask me and I'll ask you. I say, what do you think, Chuck? I say, I don't know, bro. We got to let that play out.
I'm not touching that one. Well, I want to go through your catalog, which I feel is so important, especially right now.
Yeah.
Especially right now.
I'm fortunate to write every single word. So if you're going to ask anybody about Public Enemy and the songs and the words at least, I'm here to tell you without having to drink or smoke that I can deliver.
Well, the first album. Yo Bum Rush the Show.
Right. And that album, Yo Bum Rush the Show, Yo MTV Raps is named off of that album.
Oh, the Yo.
Think about it.
Oh.
Yeah. The first show of Yo MTV Raps was in London. Public Enemy was a sensation in 1987. Brought that next generation of hip hop across the world, and we were the first really international powerhouse to look at ourselves, finding a base elsewhere than the US of A. So London is our first base, not the United States. London is Public Enemy's base. Brixton, Hackney, all those spots. That's where we planted, right? The first Yo MTV Rap show was hosted by one of Fab Five Freddy's friends, Sophie Bramley from France.
Oh, it wasn't Fab Five Freddy?
No, it was Sophie, a woman named Sophie Bramley. And it was its pilots, but also the show had played in London. And they named the show after the next sensation of hip hop in 87, which was Yo MTV Raps.
Wow. Okay.
Yo,
I just learned something. I've been watching this show since pretty much the beginning, and I just learned something.
I'm here to tell you, to clear the myth and also puff down the yeast. Because there's a lot of yeast in hip hop. You got to go with yeast removal on a lot of things. And then some things that appear to be, like in the mirror, larger than they appear, are really small. So,
well, you guys formed the group. And you guys signed to Def Jam.
Yes, 1986.
Initially, Rick Rubin didn't want Flavor Flav in the group. He didn't get the chemistry part of it. He wanted you.
Right, because
but you insisted.
Rick Rubin wanted me in 1985 Bill Stepney was the first executive for Def Jam. Bill Stepney's a college friend of mine, and also Andre Brown, Dr. Dre. We also worked at WBAU radio in Garden City at Delphi University, which was our school. Harry Allen was also sleeping in our classes too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Had me, Harry Allen, Bill Stepney, and Andre Brown, Dr. Dre, all in the same class.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Andre Strobel was a music
teacher. The OMTV Raps Dr. Dre.
Right.
Not the other Dr. Dre.
And both of those guys named themselves Dr. Dre for two different reasons. I mean, well, same reason. Dr. J, who's also from my hometown of Roosevelt.
Okay, I'm learning.
It's like Ice Cube names his name. He named himself off of George Gervin.
Huh. Okay.
He's the Iceman. Well, Ice Cube.
Okay. Well, you guys formed, and you guys are producing yourselves, the Bomb Squad.
Yes, because we produce radio shows.
The Shockley brothers.
Yes.
Am I forgetting someone?
Bill Stepney. And Hank Shockley.
Hank and Keith Shockley.
Yeah, and Keith Shockley is two different intervals because Keith Shockley comes on later on at the tail end and Takes a Nation.
Oh, okay.
But in the Yo Bumpers show, it was just Hank supervising, Bill Stepney, right? Myself, Eric Vietnam Sadler, who's our music programmer.
Right.
Now, Hank got the greatest ears of all time, which is kind of crazy because at the end of the noise, you got to have the guy that makes the mix. So the combination of Hank Shockley and a guy like Steve Ett, who's passed, I think, a decade now, probably never gets talked about. Steve Ett was the engineer of Chung King. And Steve Ett and his Neve board and Hank Shockley worked really well. Neve was a simple board that laid it out, and there was knobs. And to process all these things happening down into one track takes ears.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, you guys created sort of a new sound.
Yeah.
Because at the time, everything was very, sampling James Brown was popular back then, or taking an old,
no, before we came in, it was things that were moving, like really working the Lynn drum and the DMX. Davey DMX was the bass player in Public Enemy's band right now. Yeah. He's the one that actually went in and produced Run's House and all the Rush sounds. And you had Rick Rubin that came in and also went and took the Roland 808. And you know what that sound, who invented that sound?
Who's that?
My Dr. Dre, the Dr. Dre from Yo MTV's Raps.
Wow, okay.
Because we had a 8,000 Roland machine that we played at our gigs and on the radio station. Keith Shockley would tell you that because he mastered that in the bass line from Roland, right? Dre, who's 3 towns away, that we're kindred band spirits, goes out and gets the Roland 909. He gets the 909, which has a sustain on the kick. He shows Rick Rubin how it goes because he's bringing Rick Rubin tracks, which led to what? Early Run DMC stuff that Rick uses later on Together Forever. Boom, boom. That's the first time you hear it. Boom, boom, boom. Because before that, the users of the Roland were people like Arthur Baker.
Kraftwerk.
For Bambaataa. Not Kraftwerk, but Arthur Baker doing Kraftwerk's song of, Bambaataa's Soul Sonic Force. They're using the beginnings of the Roland. And we had that Roland too, but they used that Roland in a way groups that you could check out the groups, Nucleus, they all used the Roland, 8,000 and stuff like that with that Roland sound. Arthur Baker. When Dre got the 909 in 1984, it began him using that sustain in live gigs. And I could be off. You would have to ask Dre and Hank for specifics. But Dre would go back to the city, show the techniques to Rick, because Dre was hanging with Rush and Rick Rubin and the Beasties and all that. Matter of fact, that Dre is the Beastie Boys' second DJ.
Yeah, I know about that.
You know about that?
That I know, yeah.
Dre introduces
Rick Rubin was the first DJ.
Right, double R.
Right, DJ.
Dre comes in next. He introduces those sounds. Rick uses those sounds for runs Raising Hell. Dre is signed to a single deal original concept, making the first bass record, which influences Miami bass, and also later on trap. And the name of the song, the first one was a single released with the new Def Jam, distributed by CBS, Can You Feel It? Which was taking the Jackson 5 sample. Can you feel it? The next record he did, which was somewhere between Holding Now, Hit It by the Beasties, and then he pumped that bass. Pumped that bass, ended up even influencing guys like Luke Campbell even more, because Luke Campbell took that inspiration and created a genre, Miami bass.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to school right now. Like, I'm learning a whole lot.
Hey, listen, bro.
I thought I was
I'm me for a reason.
Pretty knowledgeable, but no.
Listen, I'm me for a reason. I've been in the lecture circuit for 20 years, and I can keep 500 people in the seats just talking about music. Because, I mean, do I know social politics and do I all that? Well, I'm not a politician. I'm not an economist. I could talk about those things. The deal is I'm in music. I love this hip hop thing. And as long as I talk about hip hop, I will have your attention. Now, I might seem boring next to one of the most exciting, irritating voices guys of all time, Flavor Flav, but that's Flavor Flav's job. Flavor Flav's job is to step in the room and suck the stardom out of any room he walks into. He is the best in the world at that. There's never been anybody better than that. He is often imitated, but never ever duplicated. And people that do imitate him end up making trillions because they're comedians, they're actors, they're rappers. They take a piece of flavor and use it for whatever they do.
Well, I just want to touch on Bomb Squad production.
Yeah.
Because as I was going through the discography, I didn't realize how much stuff you guys did outside of Public Enemy.
Yeah, a lot of that is Hank and Keith and Eric Sadler in the 80s, then morphing into different projects in the 90s. Influential projects more than like, well, we're going to make hit records. They're more like influential. And after the influence, we all got used to pioneering things, and then the interest goes after you pioneer it. When everybody says, well, that's the thing, and then everybody jumps in and says, okay, this is a cash cow because the techniques are already there. So a lot of times I talk to people and I say, listen, man, you're in music, talk about the music, your ass won't get in trouble.
Right.
Once you start talking about all that other bullshit, man,
yeah.
I'm like, life is life, man. You're going into areas that you might not know because you're at an age to not experience that, but that's what they got to do. Everybody got a different life. I talk about the music, and then they think I talk about everything. I do more listening than I do talking. I rather listen and watch and sit my ass and watch shit. I like to go to a hip hop concert one day, see 6 or 8 groups, sit my ass in the seat and enjoy it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
That's all I want to see.
I like the Central Park 5 shirt, by the way.
Huh?
I like the Central Park 5 shirt.
Yes, that's
I interviewed Corey and Raymond, I think.
Right.
Or Yusuf and Raymond.
Yeah.
Way before the movie ever came out.
Of course. You was on top of it.
Yeah, I feel like I was, I don't know if the movie was made because of our interview, but we were the only big outlet to really focus on them in the last few years.
Yeah, you was good momentum for them.
Yeah.
And then Ava picked up on them. And if somebody had to ask me like the whole thing about Trump, my great brother, Be Real from Cypress Hill, my Prophets of Rage partner for years, he would say, man, we could eliminate even saying this dude's name. So he says 45. And that's why even State of the Union doesn't even mention his name, man. It's like, dude, it's like, I know as an OG, this dude I had a problem with from way back. So that's why I'm wearing my shirt. This is the beginning of my problems with 45.
Okay, so let's just touch on this real quick. So you're wearing the Central Park 5 or the exonerated 5, like they like to
Exactly. The dude takes out a full page in the post and damn near one of these young brothers murdered.
Well, yeah, he called for the death penalty for these guys.
Right.
And we went into this whole story. They really had nothing to do with it. And ultimately, it was proven that they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
They were all just good kids. None of them were criminals. None of them were thugs or however they were portrayed. They were just out having fun with their friends, and they got caught up.
And everybody didn't have a camera back there.
Nobody had
and
a camera back then.
And you know what? If that was you and you got caught out by the popo at that time and got pointed to and then was plastered all over the Daily News, the New York Post, how, a rebuttal on page 13 ain't gonna fix it, yo.
Right. Well, and especially the woman who got beaten and raped.
The original Karen, right?
The original. Well, I mean, you can't even really say she's a Karen because she did not cause any problems or try to.
Right.
She even said she doesn't remember anything.
Right.
She didn't even point them out and say they did it.
Right.
So you can't really put the blame on her in that regard.
Right. I'm not, and and I erased that. That was inappropriate.
Yeah.
But it comes out of the disgust of how this all played out, and it doesn't mean that you follow pursuit on the path of how whack it played out in New York with a like reaction. But going back, that was the beginning of a problem with this dude. And you never thought it was a problem. I mean, really, I had no problem with damn Trump. He's the guy that got his name on the planes. He's narcissistic. He's a spoiled, privileged brat. He's always on page 6 of the Post with Marlon Maples. And, it's Donald Trump. He's got casinos, his father's a magnate. He's going to assume the throne of being an asshole. I'm like, he's at casino. Like I said, he owns the USFL Generals and he signed Herschel Walker. See, I know I've seen this guy before. The thing that blows the mind is how much of America, the United States of America, fell victim to this New York City huckster 3-card money playing on society, get over, slick kid, privileged brat, and called him president. That's when we got a problem, bro.
Yeah.
Even so the song State of the Union simply is saying, dude, you need to be Nixonized. Like, go now, November, man. Who we waiting for November for?
Well, he got impeached, right?
What's that mean?
But nothing happened. But he did get impeached.
Dude, he need to get Nixonized. And when somebody comes to me like, yo, man, who you going to replace with all this? Yo, man, Trump ain't got nothing to do with it. I just like, you know what? Let me have an OG argument from where I remember where I got my beef with him.
Yeah, he could be replaced.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We could at least deal with 4 months of a wild Pence and then figure out November. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But this dude, and you know what? It's not this dude, because we know this dude. This dude is a 3-card money player, right?
Right.
It's the stupidity, I should say the ignorance, or just the audacity in denial that people say, you know what, after 8 years of Obama, I'm gonna press the button on anything because it can't get worse. And I'm like, Sam, you will have people make a decision because they are right in their town. You've got towns in the United States of America that haven't changed much in 100 years. I'm not even talking about the dynamics of it, of a racial and order.
Yeah.
I'm talking about you drive into town, it looks almost like it did 100 years ago. You go to the same, families pass down stores and all right, you might have a Walmart and things like that, but the change in urban centers, and the reason they call it urban because you could put everybody in it, but Black people really don't own it. So you call it urban, you can't call it a Black community. It's an urban center, right? They change all the time, and not always for the better, because it takes a lot of maintenance just to be able to understand that people live together, but they're all renting. Nobody owns anything. So how much pride you gonna have on a place where you're temporary?
Yeah,
you look about to be temporary.
Yeah,
and you got the rural areas, which maintain its existence for a long period of time, that kind of stay the same.
Yeah.
And it comes together on this big beauty ass pageant called voting for the president of the United States. So I tell young adults, I said, cool, that's the beauty pageant up there. It's an ugly beauty pageant full of 70-year-olds. Concentrate on your local. You pull your car out of the driveway, hits a pothole. You gonna go to State Farm or Allstate based on a commercial, or you gonna go to the town that got to fix that pothole? Get localized on the real deal. You got a child, you 19 years old. Healthcare, childcare, all these things mean something. These are things you can address. You're local, but this is a lifetime of teaching, and not this burst of now you got to be grown. So when you have true education, information, justice for all, being able to see what you're living in, then you have the pillars of a society that starts to figure it out. And you got to give it a little time, but it also has to work involuntarily too, because the biggest difference, Vlad, between 1980s and 2020, what do you think the biggest difference is? Lifetimes. People have been born and people have died. The same cluster of humanity that was there in the 80s probably is no longer here in the 2020s. And you have people born. If you're born in 2000, you're 20 years old now. You're in the adult mix. You're born in 1990, you're 30 years old. You are in the adult mix. People my age, math is real. The reason why math is real, you can say, oh yeah, man, you're looking good, if you feel good, if you feel good, you are good, and if you look good, you feel good. Math is math, bro. Yeah. The earth, and I'm not talking about flat earth, whatever that is, we'll leave that to that belief, whatever. Because when people challenge me, I said, bro, I believe you and I don't believe you. I believe everything and nothing at the same time, Vlad. So you can have that, whatever, cool, if it works for you. But when it comes down to it, it's like where we're at right now is that younger adults have to be given the confidence to say, you guys, this is your world. I believe that, 60 years old, you're in your final quarter. And break it down and I have a song on Loud Is Not Enough with Jaheed called Man Listen, which breaks life down into 4 football or basketball quarters. 0 to 20, your first quarter, right? Establish the tempo, figure it out, know the game that you're playing, know your opposition, figure it all out. Your second quarter, you start to, exhibit the control of your game. You understand the defense. You work your way to keep the game at bay and understood to halftime. Halftime is where you really you got to figure out, man, whether you're in the game or not, because you can lose after halftime. That's 40 and over. Yeah. 40 and over, that third quarter, if you follow basketball, that third quarter is the make or break quarter where you can lose in the third quarter. You lose it. The fourth quarter is irrelevant. And in the fourth quarter of life, 60 to 80, not a lot of people get there.
No, the game's over for some people.
Game is over for some people, if they even get there.
And you're almost 60. You're going to be 60 this year.
I'll be 60 in a month.
So,
you got to know where you're at. And anything after 80, they call it overtime.
Overtime.
And in football, they call it sudden death. Math is real, Vlad. You know why? Regardless of whatever you think, gravity and physics is real and ain't got nothing to do with flat earth. If we're going to go into science that we know, the earth rotates around the sun in how many days?
365.
The world spins on its axis, so-called axis, right? How often? 24 hours. Gravity is real, bro, on this planet.
Oh, yeah. I remember when I
So it's always working.
Yeah,
so you got to figure out always how to, not in a way like, it's a bad word, attack, but be aggressive at living life to ward off things that's coming at you. Everything sanitary can be consumed by some other living situation trying to consume it for its life. If you leave a house bare out in wherever it's at and don't go there for 6 months, you best to believe every living organism surrounding that house is looking to get in that house to consume its living space. Same thing with a body, same thing with existence. So you have to kind of, aggressively live life, protect yourself. As an artist, number one thing we have to look at. Now, life ain't guaranteed. Number one thing we have to look at, I always looked at, your immune system, especially when you travel in time zones. Because your 6 becomes 9, your 9 becomes 6. If you eat something at 6 and it's really 9, you should, all that gets flipped. And then you're dealing with up in the air and down in the air and down on the ground. And you're dealing with that. Your number one thing you got to look out for is immune system. So, and that doesn't even guarantee you're going to be clear sailing. It means that, okay, we kind of won this battle today,
Yeah.
And I knew for a fact, even in the 90s when the lifestyle was sold into the popping bottles and the Hennessy's and this and that, and some of the rock star, rap star habits were being endorsed to be sold as everyday habits. I mean, you could do Hennessy on a video. You only did it once. The video shows over and over again. People are like, well, I mean, they hitting it every day. I'm like,
yeah. And Public Enemy has always been anti-alcohol.
95% of it. Right.
Well, to the point where at one point St. Ides sampled you in a commercial.
Yeah, that was a personal thing with me.
They sampled Public Enemy in a radio commercial.
Yeah.
And you sued them.
They sampled my voice.
They sampled your voice.
That was the problem.
To push malt liquor.
Yeah.
Which I guess at the time
it was stupid. You know, it's a company that was growing and big and whatever.
And they had other rappers like Ice Cube, Wu-Tang Clan was doing commercials.
I just did a campaign against malt liquor.
Right. Because at the time, made no damn sense. At the time, I think like 75% of malt liquor was consumed by the Black community, and it had twice the alcohol of regular beer, so it was destructive. And I remember that time. I remember hanging out with my friends in Oakland drinking Crazy Horse.
Did you know what was in it?
Not really. Just knew that it got me drunk.
Now, what kind of car did you have?
Like a little Acura Integra, something
like
that.
Would you put the malt liquor in the car, or would you put whack gas if you knew it had water into your car? So cats were treating their cars better than their bodies.
Yeah.
But then that's just, you know what that is, Vlad? That's piss and vinegar. That's youthful spirit. Nothing can happen to me. I'm invincible. Mm-hmm. That's, you know, there's a difference between somebody who's 19 and drunk and somebody who's 51 and drunk.
Right.
You know, that's a drunk. The 19 is drunk. The 51-year-old is a drunk, possibly. So, you know, we just try to put the balance out there because at the end of the day, Vlad, people got their own lives. You know, you're the owner to your own life. And that's what Public Enemy encouraged. We didn't say, oh, you know, stop doing this, stop doing that. No one has that authority. We say, look, this is wise for you to understand that somebody's trying to make you be a consumer or something, and so understand what you're consuming. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to, your own judgment is going to be your own judgment. Whoever that might go to or be or whatever, you'll figure it out. And that's what, you know, the independence of thought is what Public Enemy is about. It really comes out of the whole thing. Isaac Hayes, Do Your Thing, Sly and the Family Stone. They had records like, you know, different strokes for different folks. You know, it's like those messages in the music still made the joints funky, and you got it and you felt good about it.
Well, the first album, Yo Bum Rush the Show.
Yes.
It was well received, but the sales weren't there yet. In fact, I believe
you read that Wikipedia. Look.
From what I mean, based on Wikipedia, of course, it was Def Jam's lowest selling release at that time.
They only had like 5 albums. So listen.
Right. Well, Beastie Boys by that time was going.
Beastie Boys and LL Cool J.
And LL Cool J. Yeah.
You got the GOAT up here, and you got the Beatles of the pioneers of white guys in rap. So obviously, they had, and then you had Run DMC up there in the back.
Right, which wasn't Def Jam, but it was affiliated because of Russell. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it was up to the druthers, if they could get off profile, Run and them would have been in there too.
Yeah.
So we, you know, and if it wasn't for them, they all brought us into that. So yeah, I had to find a niche, but our niche was easy because we came in there as a posse. Mm-hmm. I'm not a public, what they call public extrovert. I love the fact of laying in the background. Matter of fact, I'm the greatest number 2 man ever. I was the number 2 man to Hank's number 1. So I always wanted to be in the wings of things, and I always enjoyed the what Smokey Robinson did for Berry Gordy, and when Flavor's one job in Public Enemy is to be the star.
But you kind of became the star of Public Enemy. You were the voice of Public Enemy.
At the core of Public Enemy, really, it was like he's the DJ, I'm the rapper. That was the structure of all rap groups. But I know my role. The role of Flavor Flav, dude, be the star. And Hank would be like, dude, walk in that room and suck the stardom out. I don't care if it was the king of Prussia, President Obama. Flavor walked in that room.
Everyone's looking at Flavor.
You're going to know who walked in that room and who walked out of that room. And that necessarily didn't make it cool for everybody. Me, I was great with it. That necessarily didn't work well for everybody. And even inside the family group, because at one time we were calling Flavor Jackson. Where he really felt he was Flavor Jackson. You know, the guys said, "Oh, here comes Flavor Jackson." You know, like my. And I wanted him to be Flavor Jackson. I just wanted him to do his job. That's all.
Yeah, I
mean, do your job.
When I interviewed him, I said, you know, at the start of the interview, the greatest hype man in hip hop of all time.
He invented it.
Yeah.
Public Enemy, one of the greatest hip hop groups of all time, with timeless anthems that are still relevant to this day, like Fight the Power and 911's a Joke. The undisputed greatest hype man of all time, a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and 5-time Grammy nominee, reality show titan. It is my extreme honor to welcome Flavor Flav to VladTV.
Thank you, Vlad. Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. It's an honor to be here with you, kid.
I mean, there were other hype men of that time, but they weren't prominent like a Flavor Flav.
No, Vlad. Flavor invented the role. This is why Rick Rubin didn't understand why I'm bringing him along.
Because there were no hype men at the time.
I
guess you're right. Now that I think about it, was there? I mean, I just assumed that when other rappers did shows, they had a hype man, but no.
There wasn't even a definition.
Wasn't even a thing.
Wasn't even a definition. The closest that came after Flavor was
Send Dog.
Nope. Hammer had Too Big MC.
Too Big MC, yeah. Right.
And matter of fact, he called himself King of the Hype.
Yeah, that was his album name.
Flavor invented the role. This is why Rick Rubin said no. It's like, I don't even know what he does. And they said, and then he asked me and Hank what he does. He's like, we don't know what he does, but you just got to have him.
You got to have him.
Flavor comes along as a musician, could play every single instrument, but not well.
Right, because he wasn't part of the Bomb Squad, was he?
Bomb Squad is a name I brought to the forefront to show that we had a unit that anybody could come in and participate. Flavor is actually playing the on the Akai sampler. He's actually playing the not hi-hats, the snares on Rebel Without a Pause.
Oh, okay.
By hand.
Yeah, I mean,
by finger.
He plays, like, what, 30 instruments or something like that?
Yeah, but I'm saying he played the Akai in the Rebel Without a Pause. A lot of people say, oh, it's funky drummer behind it. No, it's not funky drummer behind it. It's just the snares. Hank could tell you. And Flavor would take that, da-da-da-da-da, and he played it pointing his finger into the Akai on the rhythm. So that's why it's not computerized. It's like computer, you got like this.
Oh, it's not synced up at all. It's totally
by finger.
So
wow.
It's real time.
It's real time. You press the button and it gives you what? And
you're recording it onto the tape and then
So by right, Flavor is a musician on that record.
I got it.
Yeah.
Well, then 1988, Nation of Millions. It takes a Nation of Millions to hold us back.
Yeah.
And I felt that was when Public Enemy really got into their groove.
Yeah, well, you had to have a hot single. Listen, Yo Bum Rush Show was an album that came out of nowhere. Before that, hip hop was a singles medium. And you had to prove to the major record labels that you had an album, right? And meanwhile, the major record labels in 85, 86, and 87 was like, yo, we want albums. We don't know about this. And hip hop was all singles.
Yeah.
And the record labels are like, we don't want no singles. We want to sell our album
CD.
for $7.99, $5.99. CDs wasn't even in the picture. We want to sell albums,
tapes, and
cassettes
vinyls,
that just came in. Easy to make, easy to sell. Right? I mean, look, you don't have to buy, if you had to buy an apparatus, which is a box, and the Walkman comes out what year?
85 maybe?
85, 86.
Yeah.
So it behooves now to make more of those cassettes that people could put in their Walkman, because not everybody had a boom box.
Right.
I mean, that
the yellow Sony Walkman kind of, everyone had to have that.
Right.
I had one,
right.
It would get stolen.
And the independent record companies at that time. Let's talk about the independent Profile out of New York.
Tommy Boy
out of New York, a prodigious label that really seriously sunk their hip hop roots in before Def Jam. You know, you had Next Plateau, Eddie O'Loughlin. You had Fred Moneo with Select. They were all New York independent record labels, and they existed off of selling 12-inch, you know, singles. They didn't necessarily understood that maybe this album thing could come in, but they couldn't see themselves pressing up an album all the time and putting like, you know, 15,000 pieces out there, because now, you know, they couldn't, they kind of thought, but it was the major record label, especially after Def Jam in 1985 when they made that 85 deal, and especially with radio. You got the GOAT, LL Cool J, who's not the GOAT for no reason at all. He's the GOAT because the pioneering aspect around LL Cool J is that he was the test of a superstar coming with an album in an album marketplace, with not only the album coming out for people that had boxes, but now this new thing called a Walkman. Think about it. CBS, before they merged with Sony, called CBS. Def Jam was distributed by CBS. Sony Walkman comes out in '86. 2 years later, it becomes a deal that, the hardware company wants to buy the software.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah.
It all fits in.
Later on, I mean, around that also time, they developed the CD, which was an idea in '79. But they couldn't see that this music off the streets that sells singles is gonna sell this expensive $17, $18 retail silver disc. Remember, I mean, Sony's tried a lot of stuff. Remember they had the big picture disc?
Yeah.
It was about this big. That failed.
Okay, so Nation of Millions comes out, and that was like the smash album.
Yeah.
Don't Believe the Hype, was that the first single?
Yes, Don't Believe the Hype was the first single, and that story is well told because we actually made Don't Believe the Hype the summer before. For really at the edge of summer, we had to come up with a song for Less Than Zero.
Oh, the soundtrack, the movie. Yeah.
But we canned it. We thought it was too slow.
Okay.
Because, you know, we're coming out with, you know, Rebel Without a Pause shifted the beats per minute. I mean, it raised the beats per minute with an aggressive sound that took it from here to there. So we said, listen, there were all kinds of incredible hip hop artists out there. We knew that, and one thing I learned doing Bum Rush's show and being on tour, that first year, our teachers is Dougie Fresh and Houdini, Ecstasy from Houdini, our master teachers, right? The only way that we would establish a foothold is that our music has to really be different. So we pitched our speed up. I mean, it was like, make faster songs, because you have an inclination when you get on stage, the crowd's pumped up anyway. So you really kind of have that forward lean in your performance. You perform faster, you talk faster, everything is quick. So that forward lean was really the key that we said we got to even make nations. So when we did Don't Believe the Hype on September of 1987, coming off the tail end of the Def Jam tour, or in the middle or somewhere, it was just seemed too slow. And we just like, yo, so we canned it, right? We did Bring the Noise. Now, Bring the Noise was a, because I tried to write Bring the Noise all summer long. And we shared a bus with Daddy-O and Stetson Sonic. I mean, 13 people on the same tour bus on the Def Jam tour, right? So out of that bus, Vlad, comes what? Takes a Nation, right? In Full Gear by Stetson Sonic, an album that's just as good, right? Pound for pound. And what? You got Prince Paul.
DLSL?
3 feet high and rising.
Yeah.
We're hearing all these tapes on the bus, bro.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, because Prince Paul was in Stetson Sonic. Okay, yeah. Then now I remember.
So we're all forming those albums while we're on bus. And I'm trying to figure out, like, how the hell do I handle this track for Bring the Noise? And we're dealing with 109 beats per minute. And I'm like trying to write to it. And then finally later on when we made it, that's why it sounds like 3, because we took 3 tracks and put it all together. And then rapped 3 different styles on the same track. So then we put that on Less Than Zero. And it was so unorthodox at the time. I remember Harry Allen came down to Atlanta, was playing a show in Atlanta. He came down and said, I got the cassette tape from Hank. And I put Bring the Noise in the cassette deck. And I was so disturbed by the unorthodox manner of the record, I threw it across the room. And me, I'm the guy that does Public Enemy #1, that which is unorthodox as hell. And I thought Bring the Noise was like, because it was so, and so fast forward to Don't Believe the Hype, it's like, we canned it. Less Than Zero is Bring the Noise, and it took the speed up to 109. So we was like, faster the better, right? 88 comes around, we finished playing the Def Jam tour. I have that tape that I interspersed between Takes a Nation parts with the crowd from London to show that although we ain't hitting the United States, we already got a market. That's why when people talk about international hip hop, the minute you play it, the first second you play It Takes a Nation, it ain't in the United States. It's Welcome London.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
That's how it was. Imagine being there, bro. So anyway, one day, me and Hank are going somewhere and he hears DMC. And DMC has the Bronco with the biggest sound system in life. And he's playing a record that's shaking the street. And it was like, what is that? It sounds like the shit we did. It was Don't Believe the Hype. And that's when we said, oh, that sounds like the first single.
That's the single.
And back then, leaks, you do something in the studio, you'd be like, I don't know how they got the tape. It's like Tim Westwood over in the UK. You just get out of the studio, all of a sudden you find out that Westwood, you got the tapes, and Westwood already got his shit in the top 5.
Right, it's already playing.
It's like, London. What the fuck? It's like, how the hell did he get that?
Yeah, shout out to Tim Westwood.
And also, let me tell you this. This is not a bragging point, it's just fact, but just to try to realign people to fact. I've been the most interviewed rapper ever of all time.
I believe
it. Not just the longevity over 30 years, but by default, what's falling in my lap, there were three situations. A, Public Enemy, which is enough of its thing. Hip hop, as a spokesperson for many years. And then the social political thing, which a lot of people say, I ain't go with that. And that's the area that can drag you into a cave.
Like, for example, I interview Lord Jamar on a regular basis.
He's the king. That's another good guy you got chemistry with.
Oh yeah, that's my man.
And the tough questions that I can't answer, then you hit him once more.
Well, he said point blank that Nation of Millions is his favorite hip hop album of all time.
And for me, Public Enemy is probably my favorite group of all time. With my favorite album of all time, hip hop album, which is Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. To me, that's the greatest hip hop album ever produced, ever.
Hold on, let me ask you a question. Would you say that's the greatest album ever made in your eyes?
Who?
Would you put Nation of Millions over Off the Wall?
Yes.
And this is someone who's heard pretty much every hip hop song that's come out since the beginning.
Yeah.
Just such a monumental album. Absolutely classic from beginning to end.
Was a full team effort. It's like the Pistons, man.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like no one person could come out of that and said, I did it.
That was me.
Know?
Yeah. No, I feel
it's a team. The team effort you can never beat. That's why I say move as a team, never move alone. I think the thing that made hip hop kind of change after the 90s, that took it into a different place, that I didn't like so much, but it's, you can't stop evolution either, is that when hip hop turned into the one-man producer game.
Yeah.
And then also when hip hop also was the one-man solo rapper thing too.
Right, yeah. Groups, you just don't see them anymore. Rarely. Like Migos is considered an anomaly these days. Mostly it's one rapper now. There's no groups, and the producer is usually one guy who hires other people to ghost produce for him. You don't see production teams anymore. You don't see rap groups anymore. No. And technology kind of changed that, because if you look at before hip hop, if you wanted to make a song, you'd have to get a group of guys together. You know, this guy plays the drums, this guy's on the bass, this guy's on the guitar.
Or even when we made early Public Enemy records and you had before automation, it would be like 5 or 6 of us on a board with sliding
all real time.
In real time. So that was beautiful. I mean, but also it's technology makes it beautiful. I think that its drop-off factors come in the area of live performances where you have to be superbly skilled, like a Jay-Z, to have everybody in a place focus on one dude.
Yeah.
But also a guy like DMX, I remember seeing the Hard Knock Life tour in '98 and seeing DMX on stage, and all he had was a bucket of water and a chain around his neck. And Jay-Z had to come on after that every night. That will make you better. That will make you better. Anybody that wants to get in this game and think that they could come in the game and be Teflon, you ain't gonna stand the test of time, because this ain't a perfect thing. This is like boxing, man. You become better getting your ass waxed. And that's how I think Jay-Z that year as a performer realized, like, I have a problem here. With this guy, DMX was coming with a bucket of water and a chain around it, and it made him better. And I'm pretty sure if Jay has to look back to those days, he sharpened his knives harder after that.
Yeah, I think I remember in your book, you said that when you guys were coming up, you went to a Curtis Blow show.
Yeah.
And you saw Curtis perform like in an all-white suit, and someone threw like a tomato at him or something.
That was the Clash shows that they were playing.
Yeah. And because of that, that's why you guys had the S1Ws on stage.
Nah?
Well, I could have sworn you said that in the book.
That's not. If I said that in the book, I was young. I'm always quick to say I was young and out of my goddamn mind there, but I would say that the S1Ws, look, you're on the stage, so you present something with movement. So things had to move. It was Dougie Fresh that encouraged to have the S1Ws move on stage. That was the second show of the Def Jam tour. Before the S1Ws just stand up
they just stood there? Yeah.
Yeah, just stood there. We played the 25 dates with the Beastie Boys on License to Ill in '87. We're going into suburban towns like Worcester and Erie. And, and these guys in the middle of the dick coming up in the Beastie Boys show, since the beginning of the show, these guys with machine guns, they're like, man, we're not gonna fuck around with these black guys. So, I mean, that was the stage presence.
Yeah.
And yes, they the real deal, because if you look at the Rebel Without a Pause single cover, it's all real guys. Unity Force, which are the S1Ws, were the guys that protected our gigs that we had at Spectrum City, and we had our gigs. So they were the security force. We also had thugs in the neighborhood, the 98 Posse. These are guys who actually were thugs in 98s, and anybody that came out to Long Island, these dudes would just cut off the parkways. Because there's only 2 ways out of there. It's like, if you came from Queens or Brooklyn out to one of the Spectrum gigs, which brought out a lot of girls and stuff like that, cats would be like, if you fuck up a Spectrum party, man, and we the thugs in this neighborhood, you want to come from somewhere else and fuck up the party where we got our little game going on, and so you want to fuck up our shit, we're going to cut the parkways off. You can't get out of here. It's almost like in New York. I mean, you familiar with Rockaway and Long Beach?
Of course.
You can't get up out of there, man. You can come from Brooklyn and all that. You got to get out of there if you go there. So territories are very important, man. And the S1Ws established a rapport with the 98 Posse. And it was all one big soup bowl and stuff like that. So when we decided to do Public Enemy, we took the whole kit and caboodle from WBAU and also our live gigs. I said the S1s, Flavor Flav, me, Terminator X, and then we're going to do what we do normally and compress it into a show. That's why all the guys that's on the cover of Yo Burmester show, that's pretty much it in its essence.
Well, Nation of Millions comes out.
Right.
And it's epic.
Right.
But then, maybe about a year later, you guys drop Fight the Power.
Yeah, summer of '89.
Yeah, which I feel is the greatest protest song of all time.
Song doesn't become a song without Spike Lee.
Right.
Number one.
He puts it in Do the Right Thing.
Not only does he put it in, Vlad,
it runs
he puts
throughout
it in,
the whole
it runs
movie.
throughout the whole movie.
It's a character in the movie. That song is a character in the movie.
I mean, when me and Hank was checking out Fight the Power, and we had to deliver the rough versions to Spike so he can run it through in times on the movie.
Okay, wait.
So we didn't get the finished version to him.
Okay, so you mean to tell me that Fight the Power came out after they filmed Do the Right Thing?
No.
Or at the same time?
The initial Fight the Power came out, didn't sound nothing like how it ended up.
Oh.
And even the first conversation, Spike wanted to put together some kind of hip-hop jazz version of Lift Every Voice and Sing. And Spike just basically said in a meeting, we said, I need an anthem. And for some reason, understood this. Fight the Power is the second Fight the Power. It's not the first Fight the Power. I'm 15 years old. Fight the Power by the Isleys was a record we all remembered. Mm-hmm. Me, Hank, Flavor, we grew up with that Fight the Power. The Fight the Power we did resonated to a new generation, another generation that probably never paid, and it was rap and hip hop that probably never really paid mind or knew that the other Fight the Power existed. The first Fight the Power by the Isleys struck me as being whoa, because it had a curse in it. It was the first record I ever heard a curse in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I knew the strength of that record because this was the Isley brothers, man.
I mean, and that record, yeah, like I said, it was a character in the movie. It was just as important as Bugging Out and Radio Raheem and Sal.
And Spike's still doing it now because the Five Bloods blew me away, man.
Yeah, great movie. Great movie.
It took I'm an OG, so it took me back. It took me back to, I write Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos because I witnessed the Marines coming when my uncle, foster uncle, graduated out of high school, and up comes the walkway in South Ozone Park, Queens. This dude in a military suit knocks on the door, asks for his name. Uncle comes to the door, he hands him a letter. I'm 7 years old, so I'm cognizant, right?
Got a letter from the government the other day.
He's like, move, get away. He opens up the letter, looks at it, just drops it on the table, walks into the kitchen, into the backyard. I pick it up, said, no. You are hereby drafted into the United States Marine Corps, hereby report to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and en route to Southeast Asia in a month.
Yeah, forget what
he survived. I mean, he brought back Purple Hearts, and I had another uncle that was ruined, injured too.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, Public Enemy gives you real stories,
Well, in that song, you said Elvis. Can you do the line?
Right. Elvis was a hero the most, but he never meant shit to me. You see, straight up racist, that sucker was simple and plain. Motherfuck him and John Wayne.
Yeah.
And of course, Flavor had to do it, but I write the lyrics and gut myself out. So you do that line.
Motherfuck him and John Wayne. Now, see, let me tell you something about my partner, Chuck D. And I commend Chuck on this. Before Chuck writes something to put it out, he always does some type of research on it first to make sure that he knows what the fuck he's talking about. That's why a lot of our songs that we've made, and this is why I always say that I back Chuck up 189.9 per 9%. Not saying he's perfect, but he's right about a lot of shit. So a lot of these records that he wrote was based off of actual information, true information. You know what I'm saying? So when he wrote Fight the Power and he wrote that song about Elvis and John Wayne, he did research on it first before he wrote it. And he found out that they were racist people. You know what I'm saying? John Wayne was a racist. He didn't really like black people. Neither did John.
Now, wasn't there a documentary that came out somewhat recently that explored Elvis? You were in that documentary?
I think that was Eugene Jarecki's documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently Elvis wasn't a racist or something? Was there
I don't know.
some level of retraction or no?
It was no retraction. I was like saying, number one, when I wrote the record, right? We as black people always grew up around Elvis, but why is he the king? Why is he the icon? And I was trying to say in that record, dude, there's not only is there Little Richard still around, Bo Diddley at that time, everybody was around. Even Jerry Lee Lewis. Not only were they just as iconic, and they deserved a king too, or Elvis didn't deserve to be called king, but they were doing gigs.
Yeah.
At the same time. So this whole Elvisism, I was done with. John Wayne, I put him in there because I read Jim Brown's book, Out of Bounds. And Jim Brown said he was a piece of shit.
Well, there you have it.
that was enough for me.
Now, was Farrakhan in the Fight the Power video?
No.
Okay. But the Nation of Islam was?
Nation of Islam was always somewhere in the peripheral. We were in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And as Nation of Islam, FOI, always on post.
Yeah.
The greatest guys in the world.
Because you guys, I feel, introduced the NOI to hip hop with your second album. I mean, granted, the NOI had been around for the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, I mean, they don't believe the hype and bring the noise. I said, Farrakhan's a prophet I think you all listen to. Yeah. And this was in rebuttal to all these other Americana icons they was tossing at us. I'm like, okay, I'm going to name somebody that you probably don't dig that I dig.
Yeah, the followers of Farrakhan. Don't tell me that you understand unless you hear the man.
You know, I said the same thing in Buck Wild, you know, ain't nothing changed. Still down with Farrakhan. So it was about the Nation of Islam being a nation inside of a nation that said, look, America is going to do what it's got to do, but you got to look at yourself and unite inside that situation. You see that the Nation of Islam, for whatever organization that you might think it is, always a situation that had to be respectful to A, they're not going to carry no guns. B, they're going to be a situation that knows that they can't change the law, but they operate within the law of wherever they live to figure out how they do their thing. Now, all kinds of other things or offshoots and all that other stuff that happens, man, it's still up to you to say, listen, how do we exist in the wilderness of North America if you're not seeing enough of yourself? What Public Enemy and the Nation of Islam had done is the Nation of Islam had taken us to many countries that the mainstream bookers and promoters never would take us. I mean, I've been to many, many countries that were quote unquote non-Western countries and quote unquote off the grid, off the bar, don't go there, you might lose your life. And we had the greatest of all times there, including number one, the continent of Africa, which was some of our greatest times.
Were you a NOI member yourself?
No, always on the peripheral because we have members who were in and out. And then we knew that, you know, as an artist, a cultural person, that the best service is that you be at the door and acknowledge the Nation of Islam. I mean, I'm not going to be in a situation that's not going to be, you know, within the guidelines of, I mean, you cursing on records, man. You're going around the world. You got to know who you are and what you are not. And but organizational wise and figuring out what to do when you're looked upon as lesser than, the Nation of Islam had done a whole lot. And even down to like, people tend to like forget like that the Million Man March never happened. I thought that was a key turning point. There was not an incident that everybody was looking for, and the media was like looking for an incident.
Yeah,
and
no fights.
A million black people black men in DC just trying to figure it out, man. And how that had been downplayed and to be like, you know, I think, and you even heard like the naysayers, you know, I went to the Million Man March, but it ain't changed nothing. Stop looking on the outs and the exterior to change your world. You got to go within. And that's the same thing even when President Obama became president. Don't look at him to be Jesus. I looked at it as being like, I got an hourglass and I get to turn it over. And as that sand drips, I buy in some time to be able to move around the world, get some truth to power ideals out, talk to people. It's not about always talking to your allies. It's about being able to say, look, okay, adversary, we're on even ground. Hear me out too. So whenever you expect that The world ain't gonna meet you halfway. World ain't never gonna meet you halfway, bro. You gotta go 3/4 to the world, but you have to be taught that you are able to do so. And you must be taught that you're greater than even what you think of yourself without it going into narcissism.
Well, just to, before we leave Nation of Millions, I interviewed Flav recently, maybe about 6 months ago or so.
And he didn't get on the drums?
He didn't get on the drums, unfortunately. But I was talking about how epic the Night of the Living Baseheads video was. I watched it again recently. Like you didn't see that level of creativity.
Right.
Where it just cut through a new source and everything else like that. Yeah. He made a comment in my interview about how he gave drugs to some of the extras to make it look more realistic. And someone tweeted you about that, and you said, I had no idea that any of that was happening.
Night of the Living Baseheads was such a creative, unbelievable video.
Yeah. When we did make that video, we used real people that was really actually getting high.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And not only that, but we had to get them high for the video. Because to give it that real feel, that real look. You know what I'm saying? To give you reality. That's what we was about. Just giving you reality, but on records.
No. Because my relationship with Flavor is getting the job done most of the time. So I'm oblivious to any kind of low shit going on and stuff like that. And I tell you this, man, and I know what to say, what not to say. I'd never, ever seen him on it. Ever. Back in the day. And trust me, I'm coming from Roosevelt. I know when cats, is zoom out, but with Flavor, man, never he's always hidden it. Can I tell by his actions and activities, knowing the guy of 40 years? I could never, ever tell what he's fucking bananas. The only time when I tell him he's out of character, when you got to wake his ass up.
Yeah, because apparently he was taking drugs, he was smoking crack while you guys are filming Night of the Living Baseheads.
Yeah, but if you're not like right there, like, I see you smoking crack, then
I feel
so obviously, people could hide things in their own house.
Yeah.
Why would remember Columbine?
Yeah.
And they didn't know that them kids were building an arsenal down in the garage. What the fuck? Because they're not saying, hey, mom and dad, I'm building an arsenal. They're gonna blow kids away. He not only was good at disguising it, but he was good at not being caught out there doing it. And his characteristics always remained the same.
Right, but there was always, like in your book, I believe, you just talked about continuous problems where he would just show up late, not show up. I think at one point, Professor Griff kicked him in the chest out of frustration.
Those are the activities that show you something that you go about trying to fix. And maybe in years to come, you find a way when everybody reaches a level of maturity on how to handle it. You talk about guys in their 20s, man. You talk about guys in their 20s knowing that, and this is the 80s, bro.
Right.
It's everywhere.
Right.
It's everywhere, man. We ran a club in Long Island, man, where the crack thing grew out of the third floor of this club where cats were like rolling they shit up in embalming fluid and dust was still going on. So this is the clubs that we were playing music in.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a music dude. So and also I'm the designated driver. So I'm driving everybody home. So I'm not with nothing. I'm just doing the music. So in the 20s, I kind of okay, listen, if you're doing your thing, that ain't what I'm about. So everybody did a great job on hiding their agenda if they had anything going on.
Right. Well, I guess Flav thought that you wrote Baseheads, Night of the Living Baseheads about him.
That's stupid. Come on now.
Okay. All right.
Listen, man, I yell at this guy. I yell at this guy for 40 years because that's what he wants me to do. I'm his older brother and I'm younger than him. Even late this year, that's why I said that this year, it's simple. It was simple. It's like, bro, you want to get together, you got to do your job. Yeah. It's just I'm asking you to do 25%, not 10% like before. In order for us to work together, you got to come up and do 25%. I'll figure out the 75% of work. And that's all that was about. But if I don't, and years ago I said, you know what, man, I ain't gonna yell. I ain't your father. You a grandfather. I'm not yelling at grandfather. You figure it out. And that's how that was. Long story short, but people want me to be in the middle of their concern and sometimes be harder on something. It's like when you saw the Temptations and you saw David Russell.
Yeah.
And he looks at Otis. Said, man, you should have been hard on us. I'm like, that ain't gonna be me. I would tell him, we watching the Temptations, my group. I'm like, I ain't doing that shit. Y'all grown or y'all on your own, man. But you gotta do that sometimes when it comes down to the work, man.
Well,
and that's what makes us like, dude, it's so easy for you. Like, look, State of the Union. How easy is it for Flav to be Flav?
Yeah, he does the hook. That's it.
But
great song.
You know, no. He doesn't just do the hook, but he brings that same that Rick couldn't even understand to it. But do that. Just then do that. And you can do more. Like he's producing the next Public Enemy album.
Okay.
And I want to call it, it's called Come to Where the Flavor Is. And now me and Primo and other people are along the side. So he's on training wheels. Okay. In order to do the work, you got to do the work. You can't dream about the work. You can't talk about the work. You got to do the work. And the work is the details from A to Z. And we're here for that. I mean, listen, Vlad, one thing about us in music and entertainment, we don't have to come up with the vaccine, bro. We don't have to come up with the vaccine. This is rather academic. You do your thing. It works, cool. It don't work, you try again. You keep it going. And that's why, on my radio show, I played like 23 of Premier's productions over the last 18 months. 23 of them. Mm. That dude is like a beast in working. And I'm the same way.
Well, right around 1990, in the midst of all this, you guys produced Ice Cube's album, America's Most Wanted, which is just an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah, and you extended the team even more so. Because you got to add the great Sir Jinx to it, who actually took, and Jinx is Dre's cousin, and also took, a great apprenticeship next to Eric Vietnam Sadler. So
that was, figure. I mean, to think that Ice Cube could top himself after leaving NWA and having Dr. Dre behind the boards to come up with something to go to a totally different coast, a totally different sound.
And a totally different environment.
Totally different
hostile to anything coming up out of New York.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you guys really form that partnership with Ice Cube?
Once again, it all starts on tour. Public Enemy's playing. NWA's opening up. Hammer opened up for us. Public Enemy and Stetson Sonic, which is Daddy-O, were the first groups to embrace everybody outside of New York. We had to bring the Noise tour in the winter of 1988. Which skeptics and promoters and venues said would not work because they were only used to seeing tours come up out of New York in the summertime prior and being successful. We said we're going to do something in the wintertime and use acts from other parts of the United States. And they were like, so when we went in the Northwest region, it was Mix-a-Lot from Seattle. It was Hammer and Too Short from the Bay Area. It was NWA in spots. It was Luke in Florida. It was Shy D in Atlanta. If you ask guys like, even on tours, we would bring Too Short to Baltimore. He's not going to get to Baltimore unless the situation at the top says, we'll make it easy for you to play in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I remember Short, and the thing about Short, man, great guy, Todd Short.
I love Too Short,
man.
I love Too Short.
Todd Short back in the day, and he don't do it now because people would probably try to cut his leg off. I could tell it now. I said this on a couple documentaries. Have all the pay. He tell you, he take the pay and put it all in his sock. So he's performing with the money in his sock. But I remember him looking at people in Baltimore Civic Center. And I was always like the OG coach, by the way. So I said, Short, you go out and do your thing. Those fans out there know you, some of them, and if they don't know you, go out there and grab some of them with your thing. Because, whatever you say, we're going to balance it out there in with what we talk about. So we're all hip hop. We're one unofficial union. We're all in here together. And there's a certain aspect out there that know you, and go out there. Don't be afraid. He got rid of the jitters because the jitters are not afraid to do his thing. The jitters is being 3,000 miles away from Oakland and doing his thing. And so we did a good job on breaking the country to understand. And then MTV Raps came afterwards with breaking the country to understand that hip hop and rap could come from anywhere. So Ice Cube comes out of that, mix of having a relationship with me as an older brother, as an MC, as a performer. He takes a few of my moves that he sees me, because I took a few of Melly Mel's and Schoolie D's moves and stuff like that. So that's, if you look at the beginning of NWA on their first album cover, they all wearing clocks.
Yeah, that's true. NWA and the Posse. That first, that indie album before Straight Outta Compton. Yeah, you're right.
That's their first album. I'm bringing memories back to your memory.
You're right. No, you're right. You're right.
So it's all transferable. And when we came out here for the first time, Dre is the guy that's making all the swap meet tapes. You don't hear those singles on cassette unless you get the swap meet tapes. And you ain't getting the swap meet tapes in New York. We come west and like, damn, I ain't no joke. I got Too Much Posse. I got Jazzy Jeff all on one cassette tape. That influenced what? Priority and Rap Masters to make their thing, and also Profile to do their thing with the Red Alert series. And I heard Dre was the dude that was making these tapes.
Yeah.
Well, Sir Jinx and all of them come out of that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Laser himself, Ren, they all, so Cube was, he had his issues and wanted to, do his own thing, but NWA at the time, I ain't gonna talk long about that because that's the Cube's thing to talk about, but they were like, you don't come out in 91, and this was like 89. I was like, I don't want to get in the middle of you and your group. I already have my thing with my group. So I don't want to get in the middle of you and your group. But he kept coming at me. I gave him suggestions. I suggested Sam Sever, and Sam is upset because he says, it wasn't like I was slacking it and then show up. I didn't know about it. So I think Cube said some things about maybe he couldn't catch Sam Sever and all, because Sam didn't know about it, kind of lost in the translation, which made Cube come back. And the story is, he was looking around New York, and I was like, anybody, but I don't want to be involved with you and your group. You figure this out. I'm here. Consigliere, counsel, advice. No hands on, bro. I had just gotten out. We just wrapping up Fear of a Black Planet, man. I'm just fixing my thing. But we doing Fear of a Black Planet, and we're in Green Street Studios, and me and Kane was on tour, and we had talked about doing this record. And finally, I was like, Kane, I got the record.
That's Burn Hollywood Burn?
Burn Hollywood Burn.
Yeah.
Kane comes down to Green Street. Cube is on the couch because he already did a run of his day. He stops in our studio, and he's in New York, stopped by the session. Oh, come on by, Cube, right? So me and Kane and Flav working it out, and Cube is like, I want to be on that shit. And we're like, okay.
That was the start of America's Most Wanted? Him jumping on Burn Hollywood Burn?
No, that was the start of Burn Hollywood Burn, him on Fear of a Black Planet, and the idea.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I mixed it up. Yeah, sorry.
No,
that's
you didn't mix it up. You didn't mix it up. And the idea of a possibility of getting involved with him was there. But it was definitely like, okay. And that was, let me tell you, that was a bear. Because up to then, there was no such thing as collabs and posse cuts. You know why? 3 different record labels. And they were all
Kane was on one label, you guys are on Def Jam, Cube was on Priority.
Yes. Yep. And they was a bear. And I had influence at that time when I could say, f it. It's gotta happen.
It's gotta happen.
Make it happen. It's one of the few times I've used my powers, like, make it happen. And it worked itself out. And from that point on, there was a couple of conversations, and we decided to take on America's Most Wanted after a couple things were felt and realized that it could be done, and it won't be held in contempt against me.
Right. Well, on that song, Kane had the line.
Anchamama?
Yeah, the Anchamama line.
Yeah, I hit him up yesterday, and he was like, man, bro, people hit me up all over, man. Thanks for the prophetic opportunity.
Right. He said,
thank you.
And black women.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, he said, and black women in this profession, as for playing the lawyer out of the question, for what they play, Anchamama is the perfect term, even if now she got a perm.
Right.
And a couple of days ago, after 130 years, they are taking Anchamama off of that syrup bottle.
And I think Uncle Ben is jumping in the passenger seat.
Yep, Uncle Ben is on his way out.
And Mrs. Butterscotch, you know, what she look like, right? I mean, come on, man. I mean, does this mean that we're going to have some like racial forwardness that we ain't got Anchamama and Uncle Ben? There's steps.
Oh, you know, in my household, we threw away our Anchamama. We literally had a full Anchamama bottle in our house. We picked it up and said, "That's it. We're done."
Did you keep the syrup?
Nah, just tossed the whole thing out, or ordered some Whole Foods syrup. I said, "This is out of here."
Keep the syrup, bro. It's like just dump the bottle or the box if you.
It was symbolic. We had to symbolically throw it all away. And then Fear of a Black Planet comes out.
Yeah.
And by the way, before I get off the subject, I'm gonna say, America's Most Wanted was my favorite Ice Cube album by a lot.
I like Death Certificate. No, I like Kill at Will is my favorite because what he came with after America's Most Wanted was my favorite. I'm a little biased because I'm not going to include something I was a part of as much as something that somebody did on their own. So that's why Kill at Will blew me away. It was short, and he did.
It was
probably
an EP.
one of my favorite records of all time. Jackin' for Beats.
Jackin' for Beats.
And I was like, and he did Dead Homies on it. It's like those two, and then when he did a Death Certificate.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of people, especially West Coast people, think Death Certificate is his favorite album because it's a very West Coast album once again. But for me, America's Most Wanted was just an absolute masterpiece to me.
You know, with me, I'm like that dude. I'm the old dude in the barbershop. I don't even get into generational conversations, man.
Right.
I've been checking out hip hop since '77 from a 17-year-old who looked at it from a old head point of view back then. So people that blew me away when I first saw Melly Mel and Grandmaster Flash on Long Island, just them two, you could cut the air, how thick that air was, and just what that's why with Melly Mel's the Wilt Chamberlain of MCs, because never has it been a time where the number one dude was so high and the number two guy was far. Never. The number two guys, you got to go into Kaz and Mo D probably.
Yeah.
But Mel, for a period of 79 to 84, Wilt Chamberlain, man.
Yeah.
It's Wilt Chamberlain-esque. So, and you gotta look at the eras. I make a lot of comparisons in my analysis, like they would in ball and also like they do in rock. That's why LL Cool J not being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is an insult, and especially not being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before Pac and Big, who I think, yes, you deserve to be in it, but LL Cool J is a little richer. He's the Quasar of hip hop and rap. He's the first superstar. He's the one that made Prince and Michael Jackson turn around and say, damn, Curtis Blow is our first star.
Yeah.
LL Cool J is the first superstar.
Yeah.
Boy, there's a period, man, from 84 to 1990 where you're like, what? For real.
The talent level when LL came in, it was just so much better than everybody else on such a higher level. Not only the lyrics, but the presentation and the star appeal and the whole package, which is why even to this day, he's still a big celebrity.
Right.
To this day, this is what, 40 years later?
He's the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of hip hop. He's GOAT, and they just toss him to the side because it's just too much to think about. It's 40 years. It's like if you 20-something or 30-something, 40-year career is dwarfing your age. You have no conception of what anything was before you was born at that magnitude. That's what I'm saying. When you look at the career of Little Richard and his impact on rock and roll, cats look at you and they say, I can't even explain it, bro.
Yeah.
I've been in spots with LL, I can't even explain it.
Yeah.
I can't, you know what? You could say, oh, it's 19,000 people in the garden, and that's the statistics. The atmosphere is what you can never bring back.
Yeah.
Like when Public Enemy played Rebel Without a Pause in the Garden, it could have been filmed. You could bring all those things back as what it was. You could put it on YouTube, but it can't even convey the intensity of the atmosphere. That's the thing that you could never bring back. That's why you can't compare eras, because you can't bring the intensity of the moment.
Yeah, it's like trying to listen to Michael Jackson's Thriller today.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a great album, but not, you have to experience just the level of craziness when this album dropped at the time when it was just everything. Like the whole world was revolving around Michael Jackson.
It stopped your
It
shit.
stopped everything.
It just stopped everything. And that's the thing where when we talk about history, we talk about art, curation, the moment is what you can't recreate.
Yeah, you can't do
art is short for artificial. It's a facsimile of the moment in real life. It's not the reality. It's the facsimile. It's the taking a picture. You got the picture, but do you have the moment? But so we live with the facsimile, and when you learn about art and you're trained in the arts. I mean, I got degrees in the arts. I grew up in an art family. I've been an artist through all my life, 60 years. You get to understand that art, in all art, is subjective, and everybody has their take on art. But when you look at it, it is a free-minded thing, but it's also a reflection, not the thing.
Well, then Fear of a Black Planet comes out.
Yeah.
Which to me is my favorite album.
Yeah.
Because
that was the curveball to the fastball.
Yeah.
Because picture, you throw the fastball and everybody expected after Fight the Power that the fastball was coming.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is that was a hanging curve that caught you frozen at the plate. And it was probably the most fun record coming after the most intense time.
Hell of an album. And that had Burn Hollywood Burn on it. I actually mixed it up with Ice Cube's album because he was on it as well. I'd forgotten he showed up on your album.
The Bomb Squad did Fear of a Black Planet, Belle Biv DeVoe, and America's Most Wanted in a 12-week period.
Right. Poison. I remember I interviewed Ricky Bell, and I had forgotten that you guys did Poison.
Yeah. And Hank and Eric and Keith put their foot in that. And I remember Hank telling me, man, I'm trying to get these guys to get their Boston accent out of their mouth.
And that was such a monumental record, by the way, Poison, because hip hop and R&B really were two very separate genres at that time. I think that was the one
They were getting closer.
They were getting close, but that song was what
the
really
perfect marriage
was the bridge.
But it was growing in that direction. You started having, and these guys never get their names mentioned. You guys started having guys like Vincent Davis. You familiar with Vincent Davis?
I am not.
Vincent Davis is the president CEO label, brother from the Bronx, lived down the street from Chuck Chillout in the Bronx. They had Vintertainment Records. Okay. Vintertainment Records put out DJ records in the early 80s, records like 2-3 Break. You ever heard 2-3 Break?
Not really. 2-3
Break was where reacted. They had Chuck Chillout, DJ Red Alert, and they also had a couple other records in there where these guys put out DJ records. Around 87, 86, the beginnings of Public Enemy, Hank and Vincent Davis had a good relationship, and then Vincent Davis had a young guy from, I think, Bronx or Mount Vernon, where he's from, called Keith Sweat. And that's the beginning of the, gotta have a little bit of this going into your music and what's going on. It was like Keith Sweat and all that area, the Uptown with Andre Arell, they started getting, Andre was Heavy D and a whole bunch of rappers, but it's starting to have the Teddy Riley up in there, and that was the beginning. So you had a culmination by the time you got the Poison that you was able to do those things after after 88, 87, 86. It was a gradual moment. And then Hank and Eric, they just took it on out of the park with Poison.
Oh, yeah. Classic record to this day.
Yeah.
This is what, 30-something years later?
Yeah.
Well, Welcome to the Terror Dome. Was that the first single? A Fear of a Black Planet?
It wasn't meant to be the first single, but it was me dropping a single that fall over looking at the summer of 89. And it was just, I took a long drive to like Easton, Pennsylvania in the middle of the night just to clear my head of all that stuff that was going on in '89, and I wrote Welcome to Terradome. Listen to the Chuck Chill Out Show.
Well, in that song, you had that one line, so-called chosen frozen.
It's not just one line. I got a lot of lines in there, Vlad. I had shooting of Huey Newton, and this is what got the record first looked at from the hand of a nigga who pulled the trig. Because Huey Newton used to call me every night.
Really? You guys had a relationship? Okay.
For up to that time, couple of nights in '89, not all the time, about 3 or 4 times. In the middle of the night, Huey Newton would call me.
Who was one of the co-founders of the Black Panthers, for those that don't know.
Yeah.
And this was kind of in his later days.
This was in his last days.
His last days, yeah.
He had first met us coming to that Bring the Noise gig in '88. And Huey Newton was in the stands, and we noticed him. We brought him up on stage in Kaiser, up in Oakland.
Ah, people went crazy?
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Did people know who he was by that time? Because he had
only, I know, his neighborhood things, you got all kinds of people talking or whatever was going on. And at that particular time, it was a suspect time what goes on. But that happens, man. It happens in the story. It's called PTSD, man.
Right. Well, I'd also
heroes
heard
suffer PTSD, and sometimes they're in the same neighborhood, and the cops were like elephants. In that area, they had long memories, and they wasn't going to let that go. So not only you got problems maybe in the hood and what's going on, and maybe it's an addiction or whatever, you still have the police. And all these things were circulating around Huey Newton and his issues, but Huey would call me.
Was that the first time you used the N-word in a song?
Yo Bum Rush the Show, I had a few N-words, and Russell Simmons, of all people, said, I don't want you guys using the N-word.
Really? So you took it out.
Yo Bum Rush the Show never used the N-word.
But you used the word in that. And that was the first time I ever heard you use it.
Yeah.
So it may have been the first time on record.
Like I said, you don't get rid of the word. It's definitely words where it's definitely areas where it applies. The word out of context is the thing that I never approved.
Right. So you were using that as a derogatory term for the person who killed Huey P. Newton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I always put my words in context.
Yeah.
That's why I said even in modern days, you know, if I happen to have the N-word come out, about 15 white people that's going to get it first.
Yeah. Well, then there's the line about Jews. And
right.
The so-called chosen frozen apology made to whoever pleases, so they got me like Jesus. What was the meaning behind that particular line? Was it the Professor Griff situation?
It was a whole situation going on, and I knew that my lyrics would be scrutinized by a whole bunch of people looking at it that didn't follow hip hop or rap. So I actually put it in there, and I said, yeah, they're looking at, still they got me like Jesus, as they're going to look through it, they're going to look for something, and there's nothing in this song that's going to be talking about anybody, because I'm the guy that writes the song, and I'm the guy with the voice. Like I say, you know, you are owner to what you think, you a slave to what you say, and you especially a slave to what you spit. So I put it there. I said, basically that was the line that says, all y'all gonna look for what you think you're gonna see in this song and find nothing. You know, so that was that.
Hell of a song. That beat was just like
it's Welcome to Terradome. If I had to say the song that fits me the best, that is my turbulence in my career over 33 1/3 years, is Welcome to Terradome, because it came at a time that I knew that when I come out of it, I'm gonna be stronger than ever.
Right. 911's a Joke is on that album also.
I gave Flav a title. I said, do you got a job to do, bro? Like I said, no different than right now. Gave him the title, come back next year with writing about this. And he came back and knocked it out the park. It was let me tell you, 911 is a Joke was the first time I felt I had a break after 2-3 years of push, hard. And when we came up with 911 is a Joke, because it had to be, I'm coming out with Terradome in October, and we're going to come out with Fear of a Black Planet, and Flavor came back, and Keith and Eric just put their foot into that, and it was funky. And and I went in there. Matter of fact, my nieces were on the record. They're the ones who were ow, and also I went in there and also co-produced with them. And I was so proud of Flavor. And the record was, I wanted his you know, you need ego. In hip hop, you need ego. I wanted his ego to have something that match it. I mean, one time, I was tired. This is when my kids were, when my oldest daughter was young, the one that runs my company now. And I was tired. And we had this gig with Downtown Julie Brown, man. And I was like, yo, man, I'm beat. I can't go down, man. I slept, I felt, and I turned on I woke up and turned on TV, and there was Flavor and two S1s getting out TV. I was like, oh, thank you, God. And Flavor was just went and did the gig, and it was great. I said, man, and same thing with the video, man. The video was, because I always hated doing videos. I hate being on camera.
You weren't in that video, right?
I'm at the end.
Oh, at the end.
Jay is in it, Jam Master Jay. I was in the end, I'm just walking through.
Right.
I said, just the easiest video. Because I hate being on camera. I hate pictures. I hate being filmed. I hate videos. I hate all those things. I like to be heard, not seen. And this is what people are like, oh man, you know, it seems like you work so well on film. That's why you didn't see me in many of any movies. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't do that. I mean, yes, my mother had the Roosevelt Community Theater. She formed it. We did everything from stage management, acting, all that stuff. But when movies came about, I had too much respect for the thespians, man. And I said, you know what, man? I gotta make my area great. So what the movie is over here, and they got all this money. Let me make my area great, because these people are standing out online with scripts, standing out online just to get bit parts. And I'm gonna take my rapper ass and be up in, I'm just like, these people trying to do that. And I'm saying, take care of our own house. And for years, I would see people like, you know, it's like, it's made out of the same bricks, but let's not treat our situation like the slum, looking at that as a palace. Hip hop, to me, there was enough to make our palace. Look at the film industry, the NBA, the rock stars, and look at our own industry as something to be envious over, because they was always envious over our thunder. And then they all assumed our thunder. Like, okay, we're gonna come in a rap swagger kind of way. So the film industry comes up because they appropriate, you know, hip hop in their way. Rock does it in a way that we're influential in helping that. And also the NBA. Well, so today you have a guy like a fantastic rapper, Damian Lillard. Dude is just, he grows up in a period where they're all the same thing. Yeah. You know? And we did the soundtrack scoring to Juice. That was the first scoring / soundtrack. Okay. Hank and Gary G. Wiz did that. Okay. But they're the ones that
you guys didn't do anything for New Jack City?
Songs in there. But the soundtrack for Juice was a groundbreaking soundtrack.
Oh yeah. Know the Ledge and
groundbreaking sound, but not just soundtrack, score.
Yeah.
Difference. So the score,
it was a hip hop score.
The score that actually, the placement that we put Cypress Hill, How I Could Kill a Man, boosted that record from a little bit of obscurity into being a main thing.
Yeah. I mean, I was already a huge fan of that song. So when that elevator scene come up, I'm like, oh, I know that song.
And that scene blew it out. You can ask Be Real to this day. And I say, I remember coming in the room, because I didn't do that. I didn't do that none of the work. As a matter of fact, I'm not even on it, but it's in the room. You know, it's in the next room. So you see Gary G. Wiz and Hank Shockley working on this thing. You see a time code, and you hearing this shit for like 3 days. And so, you know, that's I was close to that creativity. I'm the person that's going to tell you exactly what happened without taking credit. I will tell you, that happened. Yeah. Was I involved in it? No. No, I was in the peripheral of it. Yeah. I cannot take credit for that work of genius.
How close were you to Tupac?
Tupac was like one of the young guys on tour that's getting their ropes in. So I'm like the uncle guy. I'm Uncle. Redman will call me Uncle. Shaq will call me Uncle. So Unc is my nickname. So I accepted that responsibility. Pac is brought on tour by Shock G, Digital Underground.
Of course.
1990. Mm-hmm. Young guy, carrying bags. Latifah comes on the tour a little bit, and on the same tour, right? Latifah introduces to me a young person, a protege called Meet my young guy. We're in Louisiana.
Tretch.
My young guy, Treacherous. These two guys, 19 years old, on tour together. Me looking at both of them. They looking at me. I'm like, listen, if you get fucking arrested in Jackson, Mississippi, we not stopping this fucking tour. All right, yo, Chuck, we got you, bro. It brings a flutter in my heart, man, because these are young guys.
Yeah.
Young guys, I mean, you doing your thing. This is our senior moment. We're leading the tour, our senior moment. But the moment is not yours. The moment is your path that you set for others to assume that piece. It's like hip hop got to a spot where, this is my mantelpiece, this is our throne, and nobody else got. Mm-hmm. Our thing was totally different. It's like, bro, this is your future. This is the world that you want to be in. We're showing you how we do our thing, and we're still going to do our thing at our age. It's a 30, 31, right? And then like 19. That you can do it too. And these guys took note. They were very respectable, down with it. And the next year, Tretch was a star with Naughty by Nature. And 2 years later, Pac was a star when Brenda had a baby and stuff like that. It really, and then the thing is, I gave him a call or whatever. I think I saw him the next time when he got his role in Same Song. I said, look at this Tupacalypse. It's a Tupacalypse and Treacherous. And I was so happy, man, because I said he finally got some run in there.
Oh yeah, and once he got that baton, forget about it.
Yeah, today, if you interview Tretch, man.
I've interviewed Tretch. I mean, in fact, Tretch actually was the first person to walk out of one of my interviews.
Oh, really?
We got to the end and we were talking about Tupac's death.
You was on the DJ Vlad. You was hitting him with shots and
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we were talking about Tupac's death and everything. He just finally just couldn't take it. He just got.
Oh,
up.
That's what he got. Yeah.
He just started to get too emotional. He just got up and just kind of not like angrily walked out, but just was like, I can't.
As far as I fucking see it, anybody been to a Tyson fight or any fight in Vegas, man? If you stand 3 fucking miles down the road, they'll tell you don't drive nowhere because you're not going to go nowhere. The traffic's so thick. Gangbangers do shit they want you to know they did shit. Or if they didn't, they want to have the name of Reverend doing some shit and anything else, but they always fucking at the end of the day, you get caught. Biggie get killed in motherfucking Beverly Hills outside a vibe of fucking wars and shit, and this motherfucker just floats into the fucking sunset or the fucking sun going down. Where you could have a jaywalking charge and the helicopter ghetto bird to be on your ass and you can't go no fucking where. So with all that shit, where all these police, where all the feds, the fuck was that was supposed to be following Death Row, Bad Boy Big and everything, when all this shit going, ain't no motherfucking body there. Gangsters do shit and they wanted to be known they did shit and pass all the rest of that shit. Fuck around, believe everything, Two of my niggas, they was assassinated professional fucking hits, man. Fuck out of here, man. Say some niggas did that shit, man. Fuck out of here, man. Motherfucking this goddamn wintertime in motherfucking Florida, too. Believe anything that's while all the rappers ain't nobody getting fucking bodies and shit.
I feel you, man.
Ain't nobody getting motherfucking caught. Anybody believes some old bullshit.
Those two guys as rookies that year built a bond and a kinship. That kinship was blood, man, right throughout. Me as a fraternal hip hop member, exalted in the joy of seeing two young brothers from two different parts of the world.
Right.
Odds against them and all. Find a kinship. And brothers and sisters who come from different environments. This wasn't the fraternity, white fraternity, college thing where college students get together and like, okay, no, this is our art form.
Organic.
Coming together.
Yeah.
And with people of different backgrounds coming together for the single cause. This is what Public Enemy led, and we relished into creating a thing. And we didn't create the thing because you got to get the props to the guys like Russell and and even you got, for lack of whatever, Bam and all them, they all created a situation that you brought your situation to the table. Now, how it was governed or whatever might not be to anybody's whatever, but coming together from different environments and building on that is what Public Enemy relished in. That, okay, listen, you got a friendship, work and do something with it, And these are things, let me tell you, Vlad, these are the things that people talk about their military years, they talk about their college years, they talk about a lot of different things in the regular world, if you want to call it the white world or whatever, at special times. Athletes talk about, man, when we were on the court together, we went to war. These rapper stories, man, these rapper stories are very special. Yesterday, I talked to Joey, a Run. And just the fact that he can let a story out to me, I let a story out to him about how special our relationship was. No one knows, but people would love to hear, like, man, Joe Simmons and Chuck D. And he says, man, I just wanted to talk to Chuck. And I said, I wanted to talk to Run. And they're special to us. When they're encased into a situation where our genre and our music is looked to be the scum of the earth or lesser than or something that's just, derogatory, it's an insult. But we understand why it's an insult. It's our job to do maintenance on it and clean it as much as possible, because these people are going to be 60 and 70 and 80 if they get there. And when I hear stories about actors, or I sit with the OGs like Harry Belafonte or Dick Gregory, and I hear them talk about their days, I have no other thing to do other than be quiet and be an aberration and listen, because that's the paved way that was brought for me. That's why you don't measure it by money. You don't measure it by money. You measure it by the intensity of the teaching moment, man.
Well, I think what people don't realize is that right around that time, Fear of a Black Planet,
right?
You look at hip hop now and you look at all the top rappers, they're like the richest guys, the flossiest guys, and so forth. The theme of hip hop during that time, with Public Enemy being the biggest hip hop entity at that time, it was so anti-material. It was whack to wear a gold chain. Everyone was wearing leather-bound African medallions. Poor Righteous Teachers and Paris and all these other socially conscious groups.
But that came out of us doing gigs, because when we threw gigs and somebody came in and they worked all year in retail and they had this gold chain and coming to our gigs, we was like, yo, man, that's going to start a fight and we're going to lose the gig. Take the gold off. That's simply how that came.
Really?
Guy comes in, works all year, retail store, comes in, got this girl with him, got a little gold chain, cats in the corners looking like vipers, man. Gold chain ain't gonna be around his neck for long, man. It's like, yo, man, save yourself the problem, bro. You can't come in this event with a.
You would stop people at the door with gold chains.
Take your, put it back in the car, or you hide it, or you're not wearing anything.
Yeah, no, because I remember LL Cool J dropped, was it Walking Like a Panther, and he was wearing all this gold, and that was like one of his least popular albums because people were just not on that at that time. It was a good album.
We wanted the momentum.
You see what I'm talking about, though?
We wanted the momentum of that. You didn't feel no pressure to be a fan or be in hip hop, because if you didn't, and those things ended up being pressure later on for later generations. We're like, if I ain't got, or better yet, it's like you got ability, they got ability, but the only thing that separates you from them is they rich and you're not. And they ask, and they show up their money, telling you got to spend your money to check them out. Do pretty much the same thing. So you ain't never getting in, and that only builds up animosity, man. And animosity happened to really be a damper in the game, because you can't continue to show off to folks who ain't got, while you asking them, not even asking, because it even gets worse, demanding that they spend their money, what little money they got, in order so they could feel better about themselves. That's why I said, listen, if you got esteem, then all this shit is a level down.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if you got esteem, none of this shit mean anything. So even to this day, like,
Right, because you guys never wore gold jewelry, nothing. You guys were all rich.
We wore gold on one tour because we were on stage, and just to go up against the acts that wore gold, I bought a bag. I went to Richmond and bought a bag full of fake gold chains like this because you're on the stage. Bro, you on the stage. What the fuck do they know, man?
Stage gold.
We put ropes around the S1s. I put rope. I had 4. And then after the performance, I threw them shits in the crowd.
Away.
And throwing this shits in the crowd really created panic, man. So it kind of like, and cats on our tours had Dookie real rope. Well, they were all fake, right? At the end of the day, Alloy messed with that charging cats. I said, man, and they would see the ropes on other groups, and they'd be, oh my God. They said, they didn't even listen to the song.
Chain reaction.
Well, I'm gonna fix this. I came out, I had a rope on. They said, oh my God, I throw it to them. They're like, nah, you can't touch. Then I stopped doing that because I said, this is going to cause mayhem.
Someone's going to die over this.
I did that in Richmond,
this fake
Virginia.
Chain,
yeah. And let me tell you, Eric B and LL, man, love these, because you know Eric B is our union lead. He's our unofficial
Eric
union
B
lead.
had the most gold on of, I think, anybody.
And then Slick Rick.
Slick Rick,
Kane.
yeah, and Kane.
And I understand who's the Henry Kissinger, not Kissinger, the Henry Kissinger. I had to always negotiate with cats not trying to, in their one-upmanship. I was always the person that come in like, you don't want to do that. It's not worth it. You know, Kane, Ricky, I'd be the guy on the tour. That would be called by the administration. Oh, there seems to be a beef, and they're pulling out guns on each other. Chuck, can you go into the room? I'm like, guys, come on, man. We got 8 dates to go. What is this? You guys know each other.
Make it
drink
to
with
the
the
store.
same bottle. Yeah, Chuck, but you know what? I'm not fucking with him today. Yeah.
Chill out.
So it brings a beautiful feeling out. The guys looked up to me. I had age on them.
Right.
But I didn't swing the age at them.
You were 26 when your first album came out, which is considered old at that time.
Yeah.
A 26-year-old. Right. I mean, 30, I mean, me and Too Short had a conversation about this when he was like, being a 30-year-old rapper was like the biggest joke back then when he was starting out. A 30-year-old rapper? What are you doing?
LL had the famous lines like, my gym teacher's not supposed to rap. Remember that?
Yeah.
It's like, I would be telling these guys, I said, you guys know anything about blues and Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters? These guys were 70, but they was like, but now they get it. I mean, I used to always go to Fife, and I said, Fife, man, you're not going to retire, bro. I said, what are you going to do, retire and then open up a cleaners? This is what you do. You're all right, Uncle Chuck. Yeah, you got it. I got to hit Q-tip today anyway. But seeing these young black men, especially, and they didn't necessarily have to be black. I mean, guys like, I talked to Pete Nice the other day. He respected my mentorship. I get all this from my father, who's a great leader of men in a way that lets you do your thing. And my father, he passed away 4 years ago. That's why I was able to be a chip off the block of a great man. He was a leader of many men, never had a lot of money or no great job, but just found a way that everybody would come and get straightened out and evened out talking to him. They would get evened out.
Yeah.
And my dad even be talking to him. I'm like, yeah, but and he would break it down and be like 4 words, and I'll be like,
you're right.
Really? Damn, he made it. I used to call my dad a warlock because I said, you doing this too easy. You making it like breaking it. I don't even see how you do that. So maybe that rubbed off on me, and I assumed, and my dad even told me, he said, the thing about parenting and leadership and fatherhood in the 40s and 50s, he said a lot of men wanted that role. They wanted that role. 60s. Even if they wasn't able, they had no job, couldn't pay, but they wanted that role of being that, okay, listen, I'll come to you and untwist you, take you out. So we've seen each generation lose a bit of that. And we've seen it even in culture.
I mean, at one point, you guys had odds with Def Jam. I remember there was an interview somewhere.
Every year you have financial fiscal odds.
I remember you called Russell Simmons and Lyor Cohen, Russell Scrimmins and Lyor Conman.
Yeah.
And I remember I brought this up to Russell when I interviewed, because I still talk to Russell, and I've interviewed him a few times.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, everyone's got problems with their label, but I can tell you for a fact that me and Chuck are still great friends to this day.
Name a person right now that you can call mad at.
I'm gonna hit up Chuck D after this interview.
Chuck D, that's my. We've been making movies. I love Chuck D. He's my favorite Def Jam artist ever. Even if he's mad at me, I say that, but he's not mad at me right now. We're very close. We were at the march together.
Dope.
Right.
Right, because in terms
Chuck
of Chuck
D did more to change. You know how many rappers still today get some ounce of spirituality from Minister Farrakhan?
That was Chuck D.
Chuck D.
He's the one who mentioned him in
records. He made
the
march possible, the Million Man March, to some degree. He inspired so many people to take off gold chains and put on red, black, pay attention to their community. He changed the world, Public Enemy. That's the other reason I love him. He said, I rope a dope evil with righteous bobbing and even and weaving, and let the good get even. That's how he said. I rope a dope evil with righteous bobbing and weaving, let the good get even. He said just all the time, give you goosebumps.
Of course. I mean, I think that Russell, Lyor, Lyles, David Halston, all those guys, you know, me and Be Real, outside the Def Jam situation, a guy that we looked at that we feel equally great about, Donnie Ienner. Because Donnie Ienner, he was a guy that learned the music business in every single department before he elevated up. Mm-hmm. And he would just be 100% real with you. And at that particular time, I had a great relationship with Sony and Donnie. And Def Jam didn't have a great relationship with Sony. And I had to pick and choose whether I'm going to stay with Def Jam and whether I'm going to stay with Sony. And I was like, listen, I know that Public Enemy is a big part of this situation, but I mean, we're good at Sony. We help build these departments. So look at rap that you guys are benefiting off of now. I don't know. And then Lyor and Russell made their deal with Polygram and through the advice of my lawyer, I said, and it worked the other way. And then, you know, Sony had that void. Who do you think they filled that void with Def Jam left? Rough House.
Okay, yeah, with Fugees and Cypress Hill and yeah.
It's the way the ball bounces sometimes. I mean, and we're all better for it because the Fugees come out of that. My brother Be Real, Cypress Hill.
Yeah.
You know, massive. A lot of that where Angela Thomas was a key person. Angela Thomas was such a key person. And these are people that work and she had Judy Watson work for her. People were everyday people's names, you know, help make moves. Taish Harris. Mm-hmm. These are people that developed and worked in the shadows of doing things like, for example, Angela Thomas comes to me one day and says, you know, you have the album that just came out now. I have a good friend. He does remixes. We never had a remix before. Peter Phillips, you know, he's looking to, you know, he's with, you know, Heavy D's camp and stuff like that. And he would love to, you know, take on something. I said, yeah, why not? Let's give Peter
Shut Him Down
Phillips.
remix.
Yeah.
Which became one of the big songs. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's give Peter Phillips. And
yeah.
It you know, this business doesn't belong to one person. And Angela Thomas would make that happen. And then she would use techniques to help out Rough House, Chris Schwartz, and those guys. And remember, I'm an environment dude. I want the environment of hip hop to be great, so I can go over there and plant some seeds in that because it's all fertile. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm gonna come here and run off with the stash and we gut it out, because I think that that's what happened. And I saw that happen when the acquisition of things, and I was like, well, Lyor, Russell, this is what's happening around you. I mean, what is this, you know, this, I call it cultural strip mining thing. Gut it out where you can't plant no seeds in it anymore. So I was really concerned about how Polygram was going about it. Not so much. I ended up figuring out the Polygram system, and before you turn around, it's going to be swallowed by Universal. Mm-hmm. Well, where's my stuff in this? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And when every time you had a merger, it left debris. Of course, when you have a merger, you got 10 people here, 10 people here. You ain't gonna have 20.
You always see acts in limbo. You know,
Yeah.
I remember I interviewed the Clips' manager. You know, when you know, the Clips label merged, and then they were in limbo, and that's when his life started going a different direction, trying to make money, and people start to kind of hustle because they get caught up in contractual obligations and lawyers, and albums can't come out, and you know.
And understand, you could say that's business, but here's the thing, and I want to probably issue this as being an important note, whether you show anything else. We've come to a point right now, this point I've been saying the last 20 years, especially when it comes to the genre of rap music and hip hop. Soul is more than just a number. The appropriation of Black culture into corporate business and music, business and industry, it gotta be more than being quantified by a number. I brought this conversation up to my people around me and others. I said, it's gotta be a point where in the music that I do, or music and Black music in this situation, where importance at least is equal as popular, if not sometimes better. You go to any one of those companies that got holdings, bro. There's no confusion between the Backstreet Boys catalog that still might be doing umpteen amount of millions, and Bob Dylan, who might have 2 caretakers and curators over some basement tape stuff. There's a difference between Miles and whatever's moving units for a 5-year period. And that Miles piece might not even move units. So in other forms and genres, they boil it down and say, you know what? That's important.
Yeah.
That's popular. That's feeding our bottom line.
Evergreen content, basically.
That's important.
Yeah, timeless
And that's
content.
why when people go down to like a Public Enemy catalog, I said, listen, from here on out, importance to me is going to be greater than popular, or at least as equal than. So don't give me your say-so on metrics and data and analytics, because right about now, where we are, Vlad, importance now and also quality is evening out to the conversation about quantity. And you know, it's all, if a numbers game is a numbers game, you're just talking about numbers. You can't reduce soul to just merely being numbers or not being numbers. And this is what puts a lot of pressure on everybody's jobs. The metrics and data and analytics, sometimes you got to throw that out the window and say, that shit is just important. And that's what resonates with people sometimes. And it has to be in the realm of industry, casting. It has to be looked upon as something that people feel that's necessary, as much as saying they got to go out and consume it and buy it.
Yeah, I mean, because 4 years ago, I'm watching TV and there's a Samsung commercial with LeBron.
Right.
And Welcome to the Terror Dome.
Right.
Is the song of that commercial. And it fits so well. And it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And at that time, that song is what, 30 years old?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah. LeBron James has made the effort. And we've never met either. I've never met LeBron James.
Yeah.
Made the effort to know that with his voice as an athlete, he's going to say, and he's making his mark. So to talk about comparing LeBron James and Michael Jordan stops on the court and it goes in a different place with LeBron.
Oh yeah, no, LeBron has done so much more off the court than Jordan that it's not even.
But I'm not even going to get into. I'm not going to get in the area of what Jordan isn't. But I'm saying, LeBron's time, he recognized who he is in this time and was fearless about going about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, you talk to Sal will tell you at that time, Craig Hodges was that man. He just wasn't the superstar.
Yeah.
John Salley would tell you, coming under the wing of Isaiah, never to be fearless. You walk, you like you 7'1", you don't be 7'1" and act like you 6'9".
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, you're not playing small ball. You 7'1", stand tall, man. So LeBron is also evolutionary too. He's not revolutionary. It's the same thing even when people talk about hip hop. Public Enemy is revolutionary in hip hop. Things are evolutionary. It doesn't say revolutionary and evolutionary is better than or less than. It's just that evolution comes out of you and you got to recognize to grab it and go forward with it. And maybe be revolutionary in some things, but things have been done before, you could carry it further. Yeah. And that's what LeBron James does in sports. Talib Kweli has done in hip hop. He's him and Mos Def come along. And Black Star, they're evolutionary because they said, we know where to take this and even be further fearless in it.
Yeah, no, I remember when I interviewed Jalen Rose and we were talking about how, in Detroit, they didn't like Jordan.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the, and that was one of the cities where you get clowned for wearing Nikes, like take off them weak ass Jordans. And he was like, yeah, and I'm trying to figure out, and I'm thinking of my man Chuck, I like Nike, but wait a minute.
But imagine just being a guy growing up in Detroit, and you pointed to something that's really important. The bad boys represented the city. And so I remember like seeing people like, you wearing Jordans? To the point where we would clown people for rocking Jordans. And then Uncle Chuck was like, I like Nike, but wait a minute. I was like, oh, I'm done for show now.
I saw that.
And that was, you saw that, right?
Yeah, I mean, Detroit, Chicago, man. Come on, 4-hour drive, man. Come on, really? Really? Seriously? You can't go to Chicago with anything for Detroit and the same thing. That goes back in music. Look, man, back when they had like the Chess subsidiary, when they had Checker Records and Cadet of Chicago, and they putting out Fontella Bass and Etta James and all that, you got Motown. Man, them two cities was like, we ain't get it, man. And the thing about it, the Funk Brothers is kind of swinging between both cities. But Detroit and Chicago are rival cities no matter what.
No matter what.
And they had their thing. So Isaiah coming out of Chicago, being a Detroit main guy as an athlete, man, and you come on, man, you can see that how that's gonna play out.
Yeah.
And I saw that as a young person growing up, as a younger adult, and said, yeah. But I have family from Detroit. I have family from Chicago. So Detroit always was special to me. I've been going to Detroit since '67 as a kid. You know what I'm saying? So that Detroit blew my mind because I'd never seen so many Black people have something in Detroit. I'm coming from New York. My parents born in Harlem. I'm going to Detroit. Cats got lawns and kind of new cars and like, whoa. And even on Long Island, because in Long Island, you're in enclaves, you're in small towns. Detroit was a city.
Yeah.
And that's why looking at Detroit the last 20, 25 years, 30 years, I can imagine how it is when people in the heyday, but also those people are like 80s and 90s now. It's just that generation is almost gone. All the Motown people in their 70s and 80s, and the younger people you talk about, the Jalen Rose, Chris Webber era of Detroiters, the Awesome Dre's, the Champ Towns. This is like a notch right before you start getting into the Eminems, the Kid Rock, and then going further up into Royce, the 5'9", and then all the guys, the D12 guys and stuff like that. I've been going to Detroit so long. I did a voiceover documentary for all the Detroit rappers, and Champtown did it. He's had some relationship that's on and off. And Champtown, this rapper that I'm naming from Detroit, I go and record something for his album. I go to Warren. I drive my car to Warren. I go in the basement, and it's like, oh, house in the basement, leaky pipes, low ceiling. This Kid Rock is the engineer. Studio in his house. Well, so I'm like, oh, so Rocco, man. I said, yo, and he has a high top fade in the early 90s on Jive. So he's like, yeah, I did the thing and all, but this is what I'm doing now. Cause I said, yo, and he plays me this stuff with Shortcut and all that. I said, man, maybe I could bring you over to Def Jam. So nah, I'm kind of dealing with Atlantic and this thing called Lava, and then Kid Rock becomes Kid Rock.
Well, one of the themes, speaking of Detroit, that's been running through VladTV for a while was Lord Jamar has always said that white people are guests in the house of hip hop.
Yeah.
And he included Eminem in that list.
Yeah. So what did Eminem said? Yeah, right?
Well, for 2 albums in a row, he dissed Lord Jamar on his albums. He kind of like, saying like, I belong here, I'm not a guest. And he starts listing all the people he put on. And then the next album, he was like,
Jamar is brand Nubian.
Right. And he actually
sent her to the core. But ownership of culture and the arts, or at least the guardian of the culture and arts that has seen it been misappropriated all over the place. He is going to have that attitude as a guardian of the art form, and you're not going to sway that.
Right.
My take is that arts and the culture are to be shared, and the ability to share in it, the conversation comes in what you have taken away from it, what do you put back in it? And if it's going to be a refrigerator that people go and pick their cubes from, they pick their beefs from, they're going to pick their meats from or whatever, what are you going to put back in the refrigerator after you go shopping? And I think that's been some of the big concern. But culture is the thing that connects human beings for our human similarities as a communication. It's a connection to each other because it comes out of us. It's a language. And when we know more about the arts, we know that it's the human being form of expression. But the root has to also be watered. It has to be respected. It just can't be uprooted, because to Black folks, especially in the United States, Vlad, Black folks, this was our only breath of air. We couldn't even talk to each other. So if we hummed to each other, or we beat a wall or a door in a certain way that was code, it meant the world to us. And what I mean, not to us in our present, but our people, because it's the only way. That's why music meant so much, because it's the only thing we had to even, you can't put soul in a bottle. You can't even call it soul. Soul could be the way you move your head and kind of wink the eye or whatever, or even have that look at somebody. You can't commodify that. And the music grows out of that. So the respect level of commodifying it into a definition for commerce a lot of the times, and then the fact that you have a population built around these redefinitions, kind of makes somebody with a knowledge of self and understanding kind of say, I might have to be that salty contrarian in the middle of that argument. You have to be wider on this and understand that will come out of it. You got to be a guardian of what it is in order to have a path for people to feel that it's not impossible. A young Black kid should feel that maybe it's not impossible for them to be, next to Eminem. If it's not a possibility, and it's not Eminem's fault, he's fought very hard against Elvisism. But Elvisism is a real thing in the United States of America, where every other institution is in its favor. So he's fought hard to try to knock it down. He's not going to defeat it, because the United States of America finds out that 50% still voted on Trump just on some contrarianism, like that Negro called Obama the last 8 years just because. So it's interwoven into that. I give a discussion a lot of times about the interweaving of the social dynamics, but at my age and stage, I give that answer when it's time for me to give that answer. Keeping it music and keeping it hip hop and trying to make a short answer for what people might think is a shallow, hot answer for the moment. I try to clarify that and we move on from that.
Yeah, and ultimately Eminem in his interview with Crooked I said, I absolutely am a guest in hip hop. He actually agreed with Jamar ultimately. And
I'm not going to be shallow to say that we're guests in things like, for example, somebody comes up with a technology and it happens to be an Indian dude from India that does it. And I say I'm a guest to the technology because I wasn't privy into, I'm not into science like that. So, you understand, you overstand, and you respect the guardianship.
Yeah, I've always considered myself a guest. I feel very lucky to be doing something I love, like hip hop. If you were to tell me as I'm listening to Nation of Millions in my bedroom in San Mateo, California, with my, being a Russian immigrant with parents who don't speak English all that well, to say, hey, fast forward 20 years from now, and you're going to have this media company where you're interviewing the guy that you're listening to. And you're making a great living out of this, and you're supporting, you have a dozen employees, and you have millions of people that tune in every day to listen to your opinion about this. I'd be like, get the hell out of here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to be a businessman. I'm going to be something else. To wake up in the morning and say, I actually do hip hop, my part in hip hop. And one of the goals of what I do is I feel I document the hip hop culture.
This is some of our conversation early on in the game. I said, it's one thing, the low hanging fruit is to take the drama of what's happening and just have it roll down the inertia of the mountain. It's like anybody could take apples and roll them down a hill.
Right.
But also, where's the motion going up the hill too?
Yeah.
And where does it actually we know there's no guarantee it's going to benefit you. But if you could figure out a way that it could benefit the path of what people could get into, it's a good thing. It's how it's how the world goes around.
Yeah.
The more places you go around the planet, you realize that it's greater than your imagination.
Yeah. And I remember when John Witherspoon died.
Yeah.
And you went on Twitter and you said, Vlad was the only person that actually sat down with John, one of our heroes, and documented his life. Told the story from beginning to now about this very iconic person that no documentaries were even looking at. No. Gave him the respect. I think you can compare him to like a Jerry Seinfeld or something like that. I'm like, he gets it. Like Chuck gets what I'm doing here. I'm actually documenting people's lives because more often than not, these people die without that type of documentation.
Most do.
Yeah, I was supposed to interview Dick Gregory. He died before I got to do it. That happened a few times with me where it's like I'm trying to interview somebody and they die in the process.
I think what's happening, and YouTube has been helpful and industries have been helpful. You have a lot of shows that have looked at your template and have done it their way. And it all works together.
It all works.
And let no story be obscured or ignored, especially if it's in the arts and you got somebody covering the arts. We can't get into the game of looking at somebody else's numbers. That's like looking at somebody else's plate of food. That's like looking at somebody's money that whatever they got for their family, whatever. You have to figure out what do you do to provide that service instead of looking at what this is going to give you. That's what it's all about. And I tell myself and I tell others, my job in hip hop has always been a serviceman. I have no clear answer why I've been doing a And You Don't Stop hip hop radio show for 11 years in a row and a rap station inter-network that I kind of spin for and I don't make anything out of. And I know people that work with me, they have the same attitude too, because they know if something happens to make some money, they know they're a part of it because they trust me like that. But it doesn't, and I do it anyway. I did my show before I came to see you. And in the beginning, DMC has a new record. I played Fight, it's him and Bumpy Knuckles put together. But then also Ali Shaheed and Roy Ayers and Adrian Young just did a song. I promote that. Sky Zoo did a Happy Father's Day song. I got a young guy from As Is, an artist who's under the radar. When I introduce these people on radio, man, I give all of myself to them. And they use it for their social media. I'm a serviceman of hip hop. That's why, long story short, back to the beginning conversation, when I knocked on the door and Premier is giving me some Tums out of his bag, and I'm looking in the back of all of his computers, setting up and doing a radio show at 1:38 that he's gonna put up the next day or whatever, playing an artist and getting on a Highway 12 that he's doing for this artist, that no one knows. And I'm doing the same thing in my room. I said, this is what it's about. We're service people, man. So if you hear a song that comes out with me and Premier working on it in the span of 24 hours, because he ain't spend long at the track, I ain't spend long writing it, we come together and it's like that. It's the intangibles that make it happen, not this thing we sat down, now let's go make something that bangs. It's like, yo, bro, this is us. It bleeds out of us.
Well, I remember when DJ Premier worked with Biggie, he did 10 Crack Commandments.
Right.
Sampled your voice.
Exactly.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Exactly.
You end up suing Biggie over that.
And it wasn't me. You know what? And this is why the business is...
It wasn't you because
the business is so important that when that record came out, I have co-songwriters. Co-songwriters are saying, Chuck, we understand you, but they took part of that song in that record and they got all this money at Bad Boy, and you might be okay, but I'm not. you have to make up in your mind to tell them. If you say, "Listen, I don't think it's cool. Let them go. We're gunslingers. We're samplers." Nah, I think they got a lot of money. We need to pay
It wasn't about the song being about crack?
No.
Really?
No.
Because I assumed it was the St. Ides thing all over again. No? Okay.
No.
Thank you for clearing it up.
And the crazy thing about it, it's like you have co-songwriters. You got to either tell them songwriters like, when you tell them don't worry about it, they're like, okay. Give me your part.
Give me your part.
I mean, that's the story of the conflict of my life is I'm always the third party in something. And you know what? There's people in the background saying, I wrote that song with you. Bro, I don't even feel the way you wrote. That's my part of the song. When next time you look at a song and look at the writers under the song,
yeah,
bro, you want to talk about, I'm the guy that's like, let it go. I mean, same thing happened with Madonna. They took Justify My Love.
Oh,
I'm
right.
like,
they used your beat.
Huh?
They used your beat.
Yeah, I was like,
what song was that?
Justify My Love.
No, but I mean, what was the sample?
Security the First
Security
One.
the First One. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
They're like, nah.
Lenny Kravitz co-produced that.
Every time I see Lenny look at me like, I'm like, Lenny, and I still don't think Lenny gives me much words from that.
He's still mad. He's still mad at that lawsuit. Who knows?
The business behind the businessman has always put me in the forefront. Like, yo,
it's Chuck. Chuck's the one that's doing it.
because I'm the face. Chuck. And then it's like, oh, lawsuit. And you know what? At the end of the 10, and look, me and Primo were on tour that year. Public Enemy hosted the Smoking Grooves in '98. So on the Smoking Grooves, right? We debuted Black Eyed Peas on their first tour.
Mm-hmm.
Then Busta Rhymes and Flip Mode Squad. Wyclef Jean brought out, his whole, circus, but he brought out Cannabis was rapping against a lion on that tour.
Yeah,
right?
I heard about that, yeah.
Right, exactly. That was the most incredible thing ever in hip hop. And Gangstar had the Kingstar Foundation. They brought M.O.P., Bumpy Knuckles, Freddie Fox,
Yeah.
And every day I look at Primo, he look at me, he say, yo, what's up with that? I say, what, Lord? He one that notified me.
Because Biggie was dead by that point.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think I remember
how stupid is that? So I'm like, yo, man, but I'm not going to stop a person behind the scene who also wrote that record and said, yeah, man, that company's throwing money at the camera, bro. And I want some money. They got it like that. So it was not even, they didn't even know Premier did it. They looking at Bad Boy. And you know what? At the end of the day, it ended up being a BMG, Sony BMG polygram conversation, right? It was like, I think it was $12,000 in the settlement.
That's it?
That's it.
All that.
So I'm like looking and I'm like, dude, I got burnt up in this shit publicly
for $12,000. Your cut of that is what? Maybe
and you know
$3,000?
And the conversation was BMG and Sony.
Yeah.
Or the BMG and Polygram.
Yeah.
But Chuck D is like, yo, you sued Biggie's estate. I mean, to this day, I think I saw Faith Evans on a plane, and I'm sure I don't know what she knows. I'm like, so listen, bro, yeah. I'm always the guy that's going to take the hit. And and you know what? I take the hit almost, but you know what? Even if it's some discrepancy going on, I said, those that know, don't tell, and those that tell, don't know. So that's what that is. And,
because
it's always, let me tell you, there's always something like that going on behind the scenes in business.
Well, right. I mean, even just recently when I interviewed Flav, he was suing not Public Enemy, but the company, the structure of it. And you were like, I
was proud of him. I wasn't so proud of his people because I think his people are a little immature and that became an issue with him and his people. I'm like, but I was proud of the fact that Flavor was proactive. It shows me that you want to do this. Sports is not in sports or concerts are not in the best places. Concerts might be a little bit of a better place than sports because
sports is a closed environment.
Both sides,
an arena, all around.
All around. It's like administrators, workers,
everything,
population, the crowd, and the players. It's like and the theory of promotion for the last 100 years,
cram as many people as you can in the smallest possible space possible. People are usually almost touching, There's usually one armrest between two people that they have to fight over. You got to either pay people half, you got to pay the performers half, or double the ticket price if you want to get by. And neither one is going to work very well.
Let me tell you, man. This is why the business totally went the other way, and I was calling timeout anyway. We closed down Prophets of Rage after 4 years. It's a beautiful experience. Myself, Be Real, Tom Morello, Brad Wilk, Timmy Comerford, DJ Lord. Beautiful experience, man. Wonderful. It was just going to a school of brotherhood. The three of our groups came together, Public Enemy, Cypress Hill, and Rage Against the Machine. Then Rage reformed.
Yeah.
And it was only getting to a point, and we played in front of 4 million people the last 4 years. Created, I mean, it was monstrous. I mean, rode in private jet for the first time. Trust, yo, bro, after 29 years riding in the private jet, and then you see some like rapper like riding like in their first 2 years, I'm like, after the vans and buses, and not to complain about my past, but I was like, whoa. And it was not, it wasn't the perks thing of the private jet, it was the body thing. Cause I'm, on performance at 59, man, I'm going 2 or 3 hours. It's like physical boxing. So your body doing rock ain't like doing rap. And I learned early on in the game through Anthrax.
Anthrax, yeah.
And Scott Ian and Charlie Benante on drums. And that's where Public Enemy got like that. So with pretty much Rage Against the Machine as the back and Brad Wilk in my left ear. Either you do the songs or the songs do you. It ain't no other way. It ain't no way out. Like, I'm halfway through and I'm gone, but physically. It ain't no way out, bro.
Yeah, you're on stage. You got to perform.
And Tom Morello is like this, man. We got, we 45 minutes in. We got another, and songs are coming like this, in Public Enemy. I'm medleying songs. I'm going side to side, I'm
a hype man.
I move faster than the hype man. I'm getting him in shape, man. I'm that dude, right? This is an athletic show. Private jet, man. Finish playing the show. Get on the jet. We in the next city. I'm in bed by 12. For a 59-year-old body, although athletic and all that, do you understand the rest? What it does?
I've never done a private jet yet. So
getting up in the morning, as opposed to getting up in the morning, 6 in the morning, to get to the airport.
Stand in line,
get your bag, catch
security, all that, yeah.
So when I watch cats like, all right, they're a pop star, radio star, and the label's just like paying them money, and they, I'm like, y'all don't even get it, man. Y'all using the private jet as a perk and get your swerve on and all that.
Instagram.
Nah, man. Yeah, this is man.
Yeah.
This is
the real
because what I'm doing is the real. Ask Be Real. Be Real was Alpha 1, I'm Alpha 2. So I'm driving Be Real, and we set out designated. It's like not like a Run DMC across thing. It's like you got A mic, I got A2 mic. I'm driving you. We drive a beautiful relationship. So I even forgot what even led me into that conversation. Oh yeah. So I played in front of 4 million people in 4 years of Prophets of Rage. It was only getting bigger. Mm-hmm. We played with Eminem in Milan and 900,000 people, man.
900,000
900,000. Last summer, bro. 900,000 and why were concerts getting bigger? I'm gonna ask you a question. Why do you think they were getting bigger?
I have no idea.
Screens.
Oh, because screens are allowing more people to see.
Listen, you talk about the first rapper that played stadiums in '92.
That's you guys on the U2 tour?
Mm-hmm. Oh, every baseball stadium, the Dodger Stadium, we didn't play Yankee Stadium, but we played stadiums. Different then. Because U2 was they figured out how to make a sound system that was clear. They didn't figure out the screens. They had projection screens, which was a little different.
Right. But now since you have the screens, you don't have to be anywhere near the stage to enjoy the show.
You could sit in seat 2,697, sit in your seat and see it just like looking at your phone. Yeah, it was only getting bigger. Promotion of concerts were only getting bigger at Live Nation got to a point where it was Rome. They were arrogant. So the music business that went from or the recording business, I should say, had went from into the music business into saying, well, we're 85% live performance. And the shows were only getting bigger. We're at the point where stadiums now were being usable because you could hear big and you could see clear. So that means seat number 2,636
you could sell
is
that.
a different seat than when I was playing Dodger Stadium in 92. I would play Dodger Stadium in 92 coming on before U2. And I'm like, what the is this person getting out of this show?
Right, it's a little tiny person they can barely see.
Right. I'm giving you
and
the
the
dynamic.
sound system is
Right.
echoing,
I'm giving you the dynamic. There ain't nobody that played more stages than me, man, in many places in the world. I'm telling you,
I believe it.
Screen technology changed the game where the crowds were only going to get bigger and better because you could see screens. So we played with Milan. In Milan, it was flat stadium. Flat stadium means what? It goes tiers back. You got a big box of 100,000 here. They're boxed off, screen there. Another box of 100,000, screen there. This shit is going back a half a mile,
they're
bro.
They're tapering screens.
Bro, it's going back a half a mile. And they see you clear as day. So what does this do for the performer? Before the performer was what you do on stage, right? So you couldn't be sedentary. You had to get down, right? Right? Get down. You rock into the crowd. Game changed over the last 4 years.
You're rocking to the screens now.
You rock to the camera and the screen.
Yeah.
You basically doing a TV show on stage. I mean, we played next to 9 Inch Nails one day. I think it was last summer, or maybe it could have been the spring. And Trent brings out his guys. And we get off the stage and, we doing our thing, man. It's muscular. It's, it's Timmy and everything. The crowd loved it. Trenton and 9 Inch Nails coming on with their own film crew. And on the stage, you're looking on the side of the stage, and they look kind of like, wow, are they into it or not, And it kind of wasn't moving around much. What the fans were seeing on the screens was a black and white frantic video that they was watching, which was totally different than what was happening on stage.
Wow.
That means you got a person 30 feet from the stage, right? What do you think they're looking at, the stage or the screen? They're looking at their fucking screen.
That's so crazy.
30 feet away. So look, you can be an artist like the artist that you don't even know how to perform well. You're a half-ass performer. You can't even bring it out yourself. It don't matter. This camera is going to capture you, and the screen and the camera is going to give you what you don't have.
It's all about the production now. Yeah.
And it was getting bigger and bigger. And this year, whether it's arena or stadium, was going to be biggest year ever. And Live Nation was going around like, we're going to make this judgment call, and Coachella is going to make this judgment call, and all that. And and when this hit, it changed, it wiped everything off the table.
Right.
To the point where now you got to look at a venue, and now you know the type of venues that stand out now?
Parking lots?
No, the cafe. I believe that Live Nation will go around and probably buy 150 to 200 cafes. Like it was the old original House of Blues idea.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Buy a place, wire it up.
Charge $200 a ticket.
Right? Capacity, bring 50 people in there. It ain't about their ticket. They're going to bring in there and wire the place, charge, and you're going to, like the first gig Prophets of Rage played, we played the Whiskey. It was 100 people in there. We took everybody's phones and wired the place to the world. So that one Whiskey gig might as well have been in front of 100,000 people. So look out for Live Nation to probably buy 100 to 200, maybe thousands of small venues, and it's back to the cafe.
Back to the cafe.
Places the size of Starbucks.
Yeah.
And new groups that think they're going to get in are going to face the fact that they might have to pay to get online now. There's no longer like, I did my guitar solo and I'm going to put my shit on you. Acts are going to have to pay now. They're going to figure it out. They're going to try to figure it out. But the game of promotion turned upside down. That's concerts. That's why you're able to see like the idea of like what they did at Petco the other day, Petco Stadium in San Diego. Drive the cars up and watch the shit on stage.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Parking lots.
But that ain't going to work for basketball.
Right.
Ain't gonna work for baseball. So the drive-in theaters, the parking lots, like you said, and the parking lots was the original idea of Kevin Lyman, the Vans tour.
Okay.
He came out of the House of Blues philosophy. So when he started the Vans tour, right, he wanted to what? He wanted to start this tour. So he goes to the arena, right? He goes to a place like San Diego Sports Arena. I'm not going to get long-winded on this, but I just want to be punctual, give you fact. He goes to the sports arena, right? And they said, sure, we don't have a sports team in here. And this is the cost for the building. You know what Kevin tells them? Vlad, you know what Kevin tells them?
What's that?
No, I don't want to pay the fee. How much will you charge for your parking lot? They're like, parking lot, buddy.
Nothing.
Cents on the dollar. He has the first 2 years of the Vans tour with no fucking venue cost. They figured it out too. They said, oh, here comes Kevin Lyman, the Vans Warped Tour. Yeah, it'd be X amount for that parking lot, bro.
So, did Flavor Flav really get kicked out of the group over the Bernie Sanders thing?
Not really. I just wanted to show him a lesson. Said, dude, man, we got to work. You want to work. His lawyers came, said one thing. I said, if you can't quell your lawyers, this will tell your lawyers something, and I will see you later on that night.
That's that. So is he still part of Public Enemy? Because he's on the new song.
Of course. Can't get rid of Flavor.
That's what I said.
But listen, let me tell you this much. I ain't doing Public Enemy without Flavor.
Right.
I could always do something else.
Right.
He wants to say, yo, Chuck, let's get this go and do something. I said, Flavor, we will always work together when you do the work. If you're not going to do the work, we ain't going to work, bro. So, you look, Vlad, look at me, bro. What was the last work that you seen Flavor do?
Work? I don't know. Flavor of
What do you
love.
mean work?
Flavor of love, maybe?
Work.
Flavor of love, maybe? I mean, I
He
don't
did
know.
no work.
I mean,
This camera waking up with a camera on you.
a bunch of
Say,
girls.
Bro, your job with Public Enemy is,
Yeah.
look, we have a relationship, bro. A song is 3 minutes and 45 seconds. That's where our relationship is on a song. Be there somewhere. If you want to write, you want to do, work in there. Oh, we have a relationship on stage. Be there somewhere in there. This is accountability.
Yeah. Never be a brother like me go solo.
You ain't seen the solo performance.
Well, you had a solo album at one point, right?
I'm always going to do songs. And listen, you never do a song by yourself. I don't make music.
No, I feel you. You're not Prince. Where you can play every instrument.
I don't make the damn music. I tell people all the time, I ain't never did anything in this industry by myself. Oh, one thing I do, but it's not part of the industry. I do artwork. Artwork is my life. I have a bunch of different art characters out there that I am. I'm doing some things that hopefully be like maybe Banksy, but it probably won't be under Chuck D. It'd be some other shit. And art is, to me, art is anything at any time. So it's the thing that just drives my life from 60 to whatever I'm going to die at.
Well, my final question before I let you go. We've been at this like 3 hours now.
And let me tell you this, man.
Yeah.
Flavor, Griff, Hank, Keith, Pop, James, Mike, Lord, Terminator, Kyrie, Davey D, T-Bone Mata, James, Roger Chillis. We all wedded to each other. We family. The barbecue could get a little, but it's a family barbecue.
A little dicey.
You got to understand, I don't tell stories on none of my guys.
Yeah.
So anything you hear from anybody else, you're going to hear from everybody else.
Yeah.
Me, I like saying, those that know don't tell, and those that tell don't know. And we all good. And they know that with me, I might not be able to fix a person's problem with somebody else. But with me, they all know they can come to me. And I might not be able to fix all of their problems, but Public Enemy has been like 50 people across 33 and a half years that I still have to have conversations with. We pick up where we left off, you know? And that's the only way I can look at it. It's not, this wasn't the 3-man group that came up and it's like, you know, it's just not Ad Rock, you know,
yeah, it's not the
MCA and Mike D. It's not that. It's not, you know,
it's a
Jay-Z.
collective. It's a collective.
It's not JD. It's not Jay-Z and Jazz. It's not none of that, man. This is like, I never take the credit for making Public Enemy for what it is. I've done a lot of things outside of Public Enemy, but I know that I carry the PE cloak, cape, and banner with me, so therefore I can't go out of character because it points back to PE. Everybody else could afford to kind of come out of the PE thing at one way or another and not have it attached to them. And I take that.
You're stuck with
that.
it. You're stuck with it.
And I'm all right to be stuck with it.
It's okay
man.
to be stuck with it. Not a bad place to get stuck.
Not a bad place to get stuck. I mean, when we got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, man, it was 100.
How did that feel?
Out. It's a tough night.
Yeah.
It was a good night, but it was a tough night trying to get everybody to feel good about each other. It wasn't even a night. We did a 3-day event weekend.
Huh.
It was like NBA All-Star. We did something on Friday. We had the concert where the Dougie Fresh hosted the Houdini. All our influence was there. JJ Fad was on tour with us. Houdini, Treacherous 3, flew them all out. It was one of the great events of all hip-hop time that never got acknowledged by hip-hop media. It was the Public Enemy's Rock and Roll Induction Hall of Fame weekend. It was a fantastic night. So by the time Sunday came, it was anticlimactic, and it was just like everything, and I couldn't wait for it to be over, but that was it.
Well, my final question before I let you go. Here we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
George Floyd was murdered.
Right.
In front of everyone's eyes.
Right.
Along with a few other black men murdered shortly afterwards.
Yep.
The protests, the biggest the world has ever seen, all 50 states, plus I think 20 or so other countries.
Yeah.
You know, when you guys were, you know, at your height, the backdrop was the Rodney King riots. And which was huge for that day. But this is amplified. You know, there isn't just one tape, one grainy tape that's being circulated on a couple of news stations. Every single person gets to see it all over the world in almost real time. These riots and protests are still happening. Hundreds of thousands of people, coronavirus or not, people are still going out there and changing. You know, in DC, Black Lives Matter became a street and a plaza in front of the
Wasn't that amazing?
That was
I've
amazing.
never seen anything like that.
Yeah, shout out to Muriel Bowser, who I interviewed not too long ago, who really pulled something out of her hat with that one.
I never seen anything
and then
like that.
And then that started to, I think it happened in New York and a bunch of other cities.
Right.
Juneteenth is now
today, right?
Which is today, you know.
Right. That you'll see later on.
Is now becoming a state holiday, potentially a federal holiday. You feel like some things are changing. I don't know what's the future, you know, what the future holds, but you're seeing somewhat of a revolution happen worldwide. As someone who, you know, whose songs still resonate to this day, like I said, Fight the Power, to me is the greatest protest song ever. And it's still, you listen to it, you know, I played it for someone for the first time, you know, showed the video, like that video in Brooklyn that Spike Lee did with you guys. And you see that energy and you see what you guys have been saying all along is once again happening. How do you, as Chuck D of Public Enemy, feel about it?
Well, you have to recognize your stage and age. I am, you know, getting into the triple OG. So this moment is mind-blowing, and it has help. You know, hip-hop was that vehicle that we were able to get across to a lot of people and drop all those differences to get that message across. It had help. It had a movie. It was on a record. It had hip-hop going for it. Today, young adults realize that, you know what, we're not going to look at anything being a leader. It's like, you know, I made this comparison. In basketball, they have positionalist basketball. Well, this is what you call leaderless movement, though. But the movement is forward with people looking at themselves. It's like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be proactive. And that movement is the foot on the gas. That me, in my stage and age, I don't have no governing leadership say-so in this momentum, only to be a consigliere, mentor, advisor, there for counsel, telling young adults, yes, you have to be aggressive for the world that you're gonna have to be in, or your children have to be in or see. And keep your foot on the gas, because you take your foot off the gas, the systemic racism that exists that you totally don't vacuum it and extinguish, is gonna pop up like crabgrass, man. So you gotta go into the root. And even if you go in the root and extract it, you just can't walk away from the lawn. These things, there's a human glitch. We can't explain what the human glitch is and how it comes from. You know that sometimes you can look at the human glitch and say, damn, you got that thing in you that's just evil that you can't change, and I don't know where that came from. That's just the way some things are gonna be. But you should be able to recognize it, and as individuals, collective effort makes the change. But like you said, when things are changing, you have to maintain the change. You just can't say we changed it, because as you've seen, even with some changes that have gone forward, in a matter of 4 to 6 years, it flips right back. I mean, it has to be voluntarily in order for it to be a voluntary motion, that these things can't pop up and just happen again. And the thing that makes this the thing to always consider to work on is because older people that know disappear and move on, transition, and younger people come in that might not know the first steps to how they be acting. So you ask them questions like, listen, man, like I said in the beginning of the conversation, it's a ridiculous notion that older people don't tell younger people that they're the leaders at 20 and 30 and 40. There's been a game played on younger adults to kind of like victim or make them like seem like they're infantile. Like, you don't worry about getting a house, even if you got kids, until you're 50 years old. And I just think that's been derogatory. Look, I believed in what Bernie Sanders was saying. So I believe that he should have been a president at 79 years old. Give me a fucking break, man. 79 Bernie Sanders, 77 or 78 Joe Biden, and Donald Trump at 75. If I'm 20 years coming in here, I'm saying they lying to me about a goddamn future. Older generations are supposed to usher young energy into leadership, not desperation. And this movement by young people in the streets, when that officer, Chauvin, had that leg and that knee on that brother's neck, killing him slowly, I bet you he had no idea that the world would respond. I think he's probably saying, you know what, whatever, I don't get it. How many people say they don't give a f? Of course, I know that was probably ringing. Probably think the worst thing come out of it is like maybe what happened like the not too long ago in that area. Remember that? Remember that area, the Minnesota area?
What happened?
Brother's name? It just escaped. The name escapes me, but it was only in the same St. Paul area. He had the French name. Yeah, it's just escaping me for this moment in Minnesota. Philando Castile.
Philando Castile, yeah.
That was only in the area like 4 years earlier, bro. So you probably say, it'd be a little race tension, a race war, and I'm down for the race war or whatever, which is the stupid thing to imagine. But he never expected that the whole world would be like, and nobody could see that coming. That would say something about this. And not to say, like, and the skeptics will say, yeah, but it's temporary and a pop thing or whatever. Well, maybe so. The conditions help create that. You lock people up in the house and don't give them clear answers, from the top, like what the pandemic really is, because there was conflicting reports about what it is that people still don't know today.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a younger generation of 30 and under, 40 and under, and confuse them like that. You keep them contained. You don't give clear answers, and then you have some shit like that coming out. You take their activities away, their beaches, their hangout places, sports, music, everything, and at the same time, y'all stay in the house. And oh yeah, by the way, racism is still gonna be kicking ass. It's like, boom.
Yeah.
And what makes it different is that young people also look and say, you know what, man, I'm not in the Trump conversation. Maybe the older people do that. Y'all figure that out. Chuck D, make it be your battle because you got beef from going back then. That's, OG battle.
Mm-hmm.
But we gonna figure out in our town how they gonna listen to us. Reform police and figure it out, whatever that is. Because, the police in the United States of America, the Fraternal Order Police, gang mentality, it's like, do you, their problem is they kind of call the person that's saving a cat in a county tree the same police cop that's up there in Baltimore trying to figure out some crime issue in their head. They ain't the same people, but they still have the same code.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it need to be a standard, but at the same time, man, you got to start looking at counties. Counties in the United States of America have always been on this fiefdom shit anyway. You go from one county to the next county, and one county and a judge and all these people that get voted in, kind of like, they kind of get voted in by default, end up being a judge for like 35 years and nobody knows, especially not young people. And that's the same dude looking at them when they get arraigned. They say, you know what? We do this in this county. You might have been in that county, but in this county, this is how it goes. And so with all these counties feeling like little plantations and they got their own forces, that attitude is prevalent, man. And if they see something that happens in Minneapolis, then they all gonna what? They gonna all gang up together and say, okay, yeah, but we're gonna actually make sure that attitude don't permeate. With that type of what they call back in the day, cracker attitude in government, old, young, middle-aged, babies and all feel that animosity. So I'm not an economist. I'm not a reform. I don't know what it would take, but that's what people are asking for when they start talking things like defund police. And I don't know what they're talking about. You need policing, but you need policing in the dealing of people instead of policing, meaning protect and serve property or property owners and handling people like animals. That should be reformed. And I think young people have gotten enough of narratives coming from all over the place. They're able to say, yeah, I feel that. I don't want it to happen to me. And even if it don't happen to me, that's just fucked up to be that way. And they're connected. And that's the thing about it, Vlad. They're connected. Once upon a time, you had to take your ass home to a TV or maybe a laptop to check out Vlad.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're on a bus or in their car and all Vlad pops up when you actually light up, and they're going to light it up and they're going to be connected. So we have to also expect new games will be played. And it's not this thing like, oh, Chuck D, you're prophetic, man, because you saw the internet coming and all that. No, I was able to see a leaning tree. New games will be played, meaning that when the grid goes down, or if the grid goes down, or all these systems that people place shit on social media as being an extension of their lives that are really one hack away, what do you do then? Prepare yourself. Save your shit on hard drives. Come up with ways that you still communicate with circles and people and able to travel without the dependency on systems running on the grid. New games will be played. And there's some of the fear also coming into, the rest of this summer and going into, quote unquote, November 2020. Games will be played. Even when situations realize they're in areas of desperation, games will be played. And the seriousness that throws fear into people is the dirty games that will be played based out of animosity, the cocktail of hatred and fear. And that is something that will take everybody to try to clear it. And the young people are making a movement to that. And I also say this, that privilege and arrogance go hand in hand. Even if I boil it down to culture. When we first started out, there was an arrogance and ego, usually out of necessity because you're crammed, you're packed, and so you want to have this chest out type of attitude. And New Yorkers always had it. I got parents from Harlem, man. You know, both of them born in the same block. New York. Everybody else is country bumpkins. That we saw, that's what I said, me and Daddy O on our first tours, we helped diffuse that. People was in awe of you from New York. But we said, you know, if you keep being disrespectful to their existence, that all gonna go away. You're gonna come home in a box.
Yeah.
And some of that happens.
Yeah, Willie D's big on that.
Right, exactly. And you ask Willie D, who's the brother that embraced him first?
Yeah.
Me and Daddy O. Come on, D. We fam. We brothers, man.
Yeah, no, he mentioned the Run DMC line that, you know, go down south and shut your mouth. Like he, you know, the South felt disrespected by New York.
Public Enemy was and Daddy O for saying. I always say Daddy O because Daddy O's the cold griot when we came in. It's kind of like the same time. Although Daddy O had a couple years on me, we went to these places we embraced, especially black brothers, man. We come on, man. Come on, really. Yeah. So I'm saying is that, and you notice a little bit, Vlad, with parents from Russia or whatever. There's a United States of American arrogance everywhere else.
Yeah, because I'm an American, my family is Russian. There's always been a very sharp divide between me and my parents and also my relatives. Like I was not that. Even my cousins who were older than me, I was 4 years old.
Uh-huh.
I'm American.
Right.
That's all I really know.
Right.
I don't know the old country. I don't know that. It's always been a divide. It's always been a reason why I was never really all that close with my family. And yeah, man, I mean, but I'm here for what's happening right now.
The rest of the world looks at this place as spoiled fucking brats.
Yeah.
When you going overseas, I'm like, over what sea? You mean Atlantic or the Pacific? Oh, you down there. Oh, yeah, that started the virus over there.
Yeah, the Chinese virus.
United States starts off with all this dialogue about everywhere else in the world, how the world gonna change, ain't been nowhere. How the you gonna tell me about the world? You ain't been outside your state, bro. I'm just saying, you get means everything being fed to you is giving you this arrogant USA attitude at the rest of the world. Humble yourself to the planet. Listen to what the rest of the planet got to say. It'll put the United States of America in a better place, at least mentally, spiritually, and you go from there. I know that as a person who's been traveling the world, 116 countries for 33 years, and especially in the last 4 years, knowing that they think it's our motherfucking choice to pick Donald Trump, and you got a guy who the world fucking despises, and half the country despises, and then people say, how the fuck is he there? That's why I say the bottom line to State of the Union, shut the fuck up, sorry ass motherfucker, stay away from me, is dude. Just leave. You got to get Nixonized, man, before we do hate your ass. We just kind of like, you know, if we say we don't hate you, we asking the question, how the fuck are you a president?
Yeah.
Because America wants, United States, no, I don't say America because it's North, South, Central America.
Right.
Those got to get included. United States of America wants its beauty pageant and celebrity show. And the reality show got to stop here when it comes down to you and your needs. And that's what these movements are. Like a celebrity, a person showing off their fucking money. How the fuck they gonna show off what they got and I'm trying to fucking keep my goddamn room? How the fuck I'm gonna see some TV, but on my way to my little piece of fucking job, I'm driving by tents on Skid Row. That's is what young people or young adults are saying. And they're like, man, that bullshit. And I know that just from young people who's in my family. That man, you man, what? Damn, how I'm gonna get that fucking house?
Yeah.
So that's that movement right now. And that movement is resonating with the rest of the world and saying, you know, we feel you. So stop being all this flag waving and say, join the rest of the world on how we can make it better and a place for everybody.
I agree. Chuck D, it's been 10 years we've been talking about doing it.
So 2030, when I'm 70, right?
Yeah, we're going to do another one. We're going to do a part 2. Chuck, man, I wish you all the best. You and your entire.
I gotta give you the toe dap, boom.
Yeah, exactly.
No elbows,
and you actually gave me a book.
Yes, sir.
Let me go ahead and give it to you so you can show it on camera.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wrote this to inform people of the myths, and it's basically simple. I kept seeing all the rock and roll history and rock and roll facts. You talk to a rockhead, you know how it is, Vlad.
Mm-hmm.
The motherfuckers know, oh yeah, the bass player and Leonard Skinner, there's not that, And once upon a time, you had cats in hip hop that would identify even the engineers on cuts.
Oh yeah.
And then you got great books out there. So I think what I would like to do, my man Jahi and I, who's an educator in the Bay Area as well as a co-rhymer on Enemy Radio, is do like the Oprah book club for MCs and rappers, because there's plenty of great books out there. I just don't think they kind of sit in a place where they get curated. So that's a good thing. So I put out quite a few books in my life, and I don't try to talk about socioeconomic politics and all that. I keep it hip hop, man. Talk about some good things that I know, and I'm very quick to tell people when they ask me a question. I'm like, I don't know that shit. And that's all right to tell people what you are not and what you don't know. It's all right to do that. So here you go, Vlad.
There you go. Thank you so much.
And you know what? This book is this thick, and they had to get edited down, because if a book about rap music and hip hop really should be about this thick, but we can't do that. Not in the physical, maybe digital. Thank you, bro.
All right, that's what it is, Chuck, man. Truly appreciate it. Truly honored by your presence.
Yeah, 10 years, bro. 10 years. Every 10 years.
Every 10 years, we'll do another one.
A lot of people afraid of the Vlad, because they want to, if there's low-hanging fruit, you're going to knock a few of the low-hanging fruit down, but I don't talk about the drama. So, but by me not talking about the drama and the bullshit, it allows people to feel that they could talk about the drama and bullshit.
There you go.
Because a lot of people, that's their thing. So then you go swim in the drama and the bullshit swamp with them and keep it high post with me. So
there we go.
But big up to Jalen Rose,
John Salley.
It's Sal, of course, and Jalen is the dude that keeps it high post with that generation on TV. I'm representing the hip hop side of things. Big up to my man Willie D out there and so many other the crew, and we move on, man.
That's what it is. Peace.
Peace.